Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Chud Watch. Welcome to the stream, the Maru Sama, Kendall B, Xandris, Big Booty Goth Queer, Maru Sama, I think I already said that, Medicated Person, Yeet the Carter, Flamo Hot Man, ICA Phoenix, etc., etc., and everyone else. I'm not going to go through everyone's name because there's 72 of you here, but thank you everyone for coming to the stream. I really appreciate it. Thank you Xandris for the gift sub earlier before I got on the screen. Archangel 13579, thank you for continuing your sub 3-month streak. Very nice. Hope you are all doing well. Sushi Mom says, I loved your vid with Pologia. Thank you. That took a while to come out, but, you know, I hope you guys liked my small contribution. I liked seeing myself as a little cartoon. That was cool. Freaking Out 99 says, I am ready to consume some milk chuds. I get that. That'd be a cute emote to get like almost like a Milk Duds container, but it's milk chuds. That'd be kind of a neat emote idea. Hello, PK the Lost. Welcome to the stream. So let's see, John Doyle doesn't have anything out today, so we're not going to be covering him, but we do have Elliot Hulse talking about how he thinks women should have babies first. I assume by first he means before they do anything productive with their lives outside of having children. We have Prager U explaining, actually, you know what, why wind and solar are bad. What's wrong with wind and solar? What's wrong with wind and solar? Probably the fact that they don't like pay check money to PragerU like the oil industry, I imagine, does. Tate speech, we have is Tate speech. I mean, what do you want me to say about Tate? He's awful. I'm sure we'll find some interesting hot takes from him. We have this that I said I was gonna get to. This was sent to me by someone. I forgot. I'm sorry, but I did bookmark it, and this is, I guess, a debate where they're saying, is it time to get over slavery? And it's titled Black Liberal versus Black Conservatives. So that'll be probably yikes. We have Sargon. I'm sure we can watch one of these Sargon videos. He's salty that Black Lives Matter is a thing that's like happening in the UK, even though it's primarily a US-based issue. There's all sorts of stuff. So we can probably find something to watch from him. There's this right-wing federation I had bookmarked, but I don't remember what video we watched of them. Either way, they have some videos that, I don't know, we'll maybe check out.
Tools of capitalism.
Thank you, Bumble Homestead, for gifting a sub. I appreciate that. We have some libertarians. I thought we'd look at some libertarians, okay? Is this the same guy? I don't know, but either way. Yeah, probably, because this one's from 3 years ago, and these ones are more recent. Maybe he has 2 channels, and he switched it up, because this is Libertarian Scott, and this is Libertarian Views by Scotty M. So this is like Scott, like with his collar, you know, all fine with a tie on, and then Libertarian Views by Scotty is like him, but with a popped collar and a loosened tie. He has a video where he's responding to Thought Slime on how capitalism is not voluntary or whatever. So we'll probably take a look at that. It's possible we'll look at a different video, but that seems like a good one to probably look at. If anyone has any other videos they'd like me to take a look at, put them in the chat. I'll either get to them today if we have more time, or I'll bookmark them for another day, or I won't. So let's wait a little bit, I guess, for some more people to file in. But in the meantime, how have you all been? I hope you're doing well on this Monday. I had a pretty good weekend. Freaking Out 99 says, we'll forget slavery when black people aren't disproportionately living in poverty. Yeah, that sounds about right. Freaking Out 99 also says, hey, Scotty. Jesus, man. Doon, 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 doon. Yeah, I remember that movie. At work, someone went to the bathroom to cough, took their mask off to do it. I was like, can you please put your mask on, especially if you're going to cough everywhere? People are stupid. What is wrong with people? Are you Spider Hannah? I am, in fact. I am. Kendall B says, my therapist said the other day that she's pretty sure I had ADHD, so I'm going to go back in 2 weeks to get tested and stuff. All right.
There's nothing funny
That's cool. Shiggity schwa, I got put on some ADHD stuff, but it didn't really work, so they upped the dose. So when I go and pick up the new prescription, we'll see if that helps. But I don't know. Shiggity schwa, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1, 4-month streak. We're on a hype train, 94% to level 1. Oh, Shiggity schwa, with that subscription, also had a message. I had a phone appointment with my doctor today. Apparently my hormone replacement therapy was delayed with a local trans clinic due to the lost paperwork. They're going to resubmit. Thanks for the streams. They helped me unfocus. That's a shame. Hopefully they can get that all sorted out for you. And you can get on the HRT as soon as possible.
There's nothing
Shamrock Star with 100 bits. Thank you. There's the level 1 of the hype train. For level 1, I'll wear my professor hat. My D&D character. Who is the icon of the channel, if you've ever wondered who the elf person in the picture for the channel is. Talon 9, or Sushi Mom 10, we're getting rain tonight. Good. I'm glad you've been able to stay safe. That's really scary, all the stuff that's been going on with the wildfires and everything. St. Henry subscribed at Tier 1. Thank you for your 3-month streak. This is a really cool prop for my D&D character, though. It has a really cute flower, and there's like a protractor stuck in here because my character is a wizard but also a scientist, and I don't know. Hey, it looks cool. I like this. Bellsthar, did they give you the good ADHD meds with 10 bits? No, I'm not on the controlled substance ones, if that's what you're asking. These are something reuptake inhibitors. I don't know. The doctor just told me to take them. I didn't really look into it. They're some kind of uptake inhibitor. They're not the ones that are basically speed. Shiggity schwa with 100 bits. Heck, have some bits. I've missed a few streams. Thank you. Zombie Tomcat with 100 bits. Left to get coffee and came back to Hannah wearing a bitchin' hat. That deserves some bits. Thanks. Freaking Out 99 with a bit. Be careful with those ADHD meds. They can have really adverse effects like full-on personality change. I haven't had any, but I don't know. Maybe when I go on the higher dose when I pick up the new prescription. I don't know. Elon Musk should compete with YouTube. What is this? Oh no. Is this someone talking about how they think Elon Musk should make a YouTube competitor? Yikerinos. We can watch that real quick during the hype train. That's fine. It's only a 3-minute video.
Greetings, Magogonites, and welcome back.
Aww.
Do you know what really vexes me?
That's an interesting affect for an internet persona. I wasn't expecting that. I say this while wearing a stupid steampunk hat, but like, oh no, you know? I like the context though. Like, if this person showed up at my D&D game, I'd be like, all right, we're gonna have a good time. But I don't know about this as an internet persona. Have you watched Puffin Forest's D&D videos? They're hilarious. No, I haven't seen them. Catalina Gearbox, so $3. You going to view the Crowder video I sent? Oh, God, I really don't want to. It's going to be so transphobic. I'll keep it on standby just in case. but I really don't want to watch it. I make a point to not watch Steven Crowder videos 99% of the time. Like, you guys may have noticed, like, no matter how many episodes... I don't think we've ever covered a Steven Crowder video on Chud Watch. No, maybe we did once. I think we did once. Out of all the episodes we've done of this show, I just hate Steven Crowder, and I don't feel like it's worth the time to even address him. He's just a jackass. And I say that as someone who covers, like, John Doyle, so imagine how low of an opinion I have of Steven Crowder. Freaking Out 99 says, I didn't know, I didn't know Magog was a chud, but I know he was an edgy atheist YouTuber back in the day. I think his persona is that he's a demon or something. Oh, that tracks. 25 seconds with 79% of the level 2 hype train. MMO addicted with 10 bits. First thing I thought of was Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Inferno had Gogs and Magog as units. I think they are a Jewish mythology thing. Yeah, Gog and Magog. That's a thing in the Bible, in the Old Testament. I don't remember the context, but I know we read about it. Tucker Wright 24, did we just stumble upon a clone of TJ Kirk? Yeah, he looks a little like him. Sushi Mom 10, here's a Puffin Forest vid for a cleanse. Sweet. Thank you. Ooh, we only did level 1, which I'm almost a little happy about, because then I can just wear this hat. I look like a jackass, but I like it. Keirthin, thanks to the 200 bits, old enough to know more better. Thank you for gifting a sub. And I think that brings us up to date.
Why is it that no one has been able to figure out how to compete with YouTube on any kind of meaningful level? Seriously. I mean, yeah, sure, we have BitChute and Vimeo, smaller platforms like that, but...
BitChute's full of literal Nazis, so I don't even know if I'd count that as an actual competitor to YouTube any more than Stormfront is a competitor to, like, Reddit. You know what I mean?
They own such a small portion of the video sharing market that they're not doing any damage to YouTube at all. The problem is that Google owns so much of the internet. They have control over so much.
I agree with that. I think Google should probably be broken up. It's become, I don't know if monopoly is the right word in every single aspect of Google's business, but they're so big at this point that they should be broken up. We need to, in this country, bring back, like, breaking up giant conglomerates. It's pretty clear that we've been way too pro-corporation in this country for too long, and everyone in the country except for rich people have faced the consequences of that. It's been bad. Devious Jillster with 25 bits. Hannah looks like a steampunk goddess. Also, Hannah, I look like a jackass. My god, you couldn't be more wrong. I don't care if this is somehow simping. Take my bits. Hey, whatever you guys think, that's on you. I'm just saying what I think. Wildest Hydra 904 friggin' Reagan. Yeah. Reagan bad. I don't like Ronald Reagan.
That YouTube is just integrated everywhere and people just accept it. Well, that vexes me, because for any good marketplace to flourish, you need fair competition. So here's what needs to happen. A new kingdom must rise to challenge the dominating empire that is Google. The leader must be someone who has power and influence and a large enough treasury to fund the campaign. This new king must understand the plight of its people. He must understand that the mainstream media is a
Stone
propaganda
Corbell, let's break up Disney while we're at it and also undo the horrible damage they've done to copyright law.
Must recognize the struggle to keep freedom of speech and expression alive and flourishing. So, people of the Earth Realm, I, Lord Magog, command you to convince Elon Musk to create an alternative to YouTube.
Oh god, that would be so bad. Elon Musk is just the worst. I hate people. I shouldn't say I hate people. I hate the position that Elon Musk is this like, he might be a billionaire and one of the richest people on the planet, but he posts funny memes, so he's just like one of us. No, Elon Musk is an awful human being. His family profited off of apartheid. He's a bad guy. He exploits his workers. He prevents unionization. He fires people, like, before they're able to get access. Literally, there was an employee who, like, they were a day before they were able to get the stock benefits from their job, and he fired them the day before. Like, he's not a good guy. When there was the Thai cave rescue, and he was like, I'm gonna build... This is a good hat for this, actually. I imagine Elon Musk unironically wears a hat like this. I'm going to build a submarine to save these Thai children. And then, you know, reasonable, actual cave divers went and saved the kids. And Elon Musk called one of the people who saved the kids a pedo because he stole Elon Musk's thunder. Like, Elon Musk is a bad guy. He's committed securities fraud on Twitter by being like, oh, we have an offer to take Tesla private at $420, which is literally just a weed joke. He was making a weed number joke, and that's fraud. You can't say that your company has an offer to go private at a high valuation. That was higher than the company was valued per, you know, share price at the time. And then it made the stock shoot up because people were like, oh, this stock is going to be worth at minimum this amount of money very soon. Like, the guy's a psycho. The guy's been lying about Tesla's self-driving technology for years, and no one calls him out on it. He's a bad dude. He's a real bad dude. And an Elon Musk version of YouTube would be a libertarian nightmare. I cannot even imagine the level of awful stuff that they would get away with on there. Catalina Gearbox with $3. My re-speech. My re-peach, rather. Anyway, there's some of my Elon Musk stuff that I think is stupid. Oh, also, he bought Solar City, which, and lied. Remember years ago when Elon Musk was like, we've built the first solar roadways, or not roadways, solar roofs, and you can put this roof on your roof, and it'll be a solar panel. That was a lie. That was all a lie. He bought that company using Tesla money because his brother was invested in that company, and so was he, and it was about to go bankrupt. So he bought it with Tesla's money, and those roofs still don't exist. It's complete fraud. I'm telling you. Someday there will be a Theranos level or Fire Festival documentary on all of the fraud of Elon Musk. I'm obsessed with Elon Musk. It's unhealthy, but nonetheless, it's true. Believe me. Where's my tinfoil hat? It's over there. I'm too lazy to go get it, but imagine I'm wearing the tinfoil hat, okay? I'm not crazy. Everyone else is.
A video sharing site that is open to all and has the money and influence to back it up and compete in a larger market.
And Hannah will direct
Elon
it.
Musk is a genius billionaire who goes to space. Why can't he help build a new...
Dude Spanking Dude says, Doomer Brain wants to watch the world burn. Have you replaced the batteries in your Sonic? Apparently the ones they come with have been expanding or exploding in 2020, which can be annoying to fix. Which Sonics? Which ones? Which ones? I own many Sonic screwdrivers. I have one right here. And my D&D wand, which is based off of a Sonic screwdriver, is sitting around here somewhere. So the one you use for D&D, hold on. Where is it? Let me go grab it. This one, the one I use for D&D. Hopefully it's not, I mean, it's still working. Ooh. I probably do need to change the batteries in this one, though.
There's nothing funny about the
Devious Chillster with 25 bits. God, this is one of those guys who comes to your tabletop and you're like, oh, cool, this is going to be great. Well, I guess we're getting a Warlock. He plays for a while, you love it, and then he brings up Age of Consent or something, and the whole tabletop just dies.
There's nothing funny about the
Oh, no. Okay, I'll take a look at the Build a Sonic set stuff. It's probably because they're so old. I mean, these came out... I've bought several of these specifically for D&D props so I can use the parts to edit, because they're really cool, you know? But, like, there's only so many because they weren't popular, so you have to buy old ones with the original batteries in the box. So I imagine it's just to the point where the batteries are really, really old, because they made, you know, however many years ago when they made this set, and then, yeah, the batteries have just aged. So I'll check out the one I just bought. MMO addicted with 10 bits. Oof, my laptop literally blew up a couple years ago. I had I had to threaten to sue Razer in the EU customer court for them to honor the warranty. Lame. Cherry Tree Boy, hey Hannah, I was rewatching one of your streams and I wanted to tell you something, so I'll do it now. You were watching a video about MGTOW guy complaining about soy, and it reminded me one time my culinary teacher actually told the boys in the class to avoid eating soy because it'll make them girls. A culinary teacher. My mind was blown. In case you ever need to know this, for someone who's claiming, like, unironically that, like, oh, soy'll turn you into a lady. Plant estrogen that is in soy is not the same thing as human estrogen. They're not the same thing. Unless you are a plant, the estrogen in soy will do nothing to you. My God. Like, do you think if soy actually turned you into a woman that trans women wouldn't be all over that shit? Yeah, H-Bomber Guy has a good video on it. He completely debunked it. But I'm just saying, for the record, if you ever need to explain it to a stupid person, plant estrogen is not the same thing as human estrogen. Period.
Way to directly compete with the Silicon Valley overlords and their mainstream media goblin armies. It's time to step it up, Elon Musk. For the people. Invite Joe Rogan along to be your high commander.
I am so sick of Joe Rogan. My God. Today, Trump was like, I want to go on the Joe Rogan podcast and do a debate with Joe Biden. And I know this gets said a lot, but this is absolutely the worst timeline, and I hate it. I wish I was the professor, my D&D character, so I could take the Hartnell back in time and just delete the last 4 years. It's been a nightmare.
There's nothing funny about
MMO addicted with 10 bits. I bet this guy has an Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, BDSM master slave fanfic. I mean, who doesn't? Devious Chillster, the fact that Trump is comfortable with going on the Joe Rogan podcast says terrible things about the Joe Rogan podcast? No kidding. Sargon's have been on there too. The Joe Rogan podcast is shit. I mean, the production values are fine, but, like, he's the most credulous host ever. He'll have awful people on, and he'll just let them spout nonsense. And, like, that can be a good hosting technique, but, like, you need to couple that with, like, really good vetting of your guests. So if you're going to have someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson on, it might behoove you as a host to shut your mouth and just let him, like, talk for, like, an hour. Because he has really interesting, informed things to say. But then you bring on someone like Jordan Peterson or Michaela Peterson or Sargon, and you let them run their mouth for an hour, and it turns into a shit show. Like... If you're gonna have a laissez-faire style of hosting where you don't question what your guest is saying almost ever, whether they're talking about DMT or Bigfoot or SJWs, whatever, then you need to vet the people before they come on and run their mouths. And that's something that Joe Rogan is entirely missing.
Literally, get high with Joe Rogan and command this to happen. All that remains is a good name, a good marketable name that reaches out to people and pulls them in. Well, if you're watching, Lord
oh God, Elon Musk too. Like, he went on Joe Rogan's podcast and smoked weed on camera at a time where SpaceX employees are being drug tested, and if they test positive for marijuana, they get booted. Like, it's so hypocritical, and that has to do with the government contract stuff. They work, with NASA, and, like, yeah, I agree that those rules are stupid, and that the government should just, like, get with the 21st century and recognize that people smoke weed, especially people in tech fields. But the fact is they don't. And the fact that Elon Musk, the head of SpaceX, can go on the internet for everyone to see and smoke weed, but his employees are going to get fired from their job for doing the same in the privacy of their own homes, it's disgusting and indicative of all the worst aspects of our current society.
Elon Musk, I've come up with a perfect name for your video sharing platform. You have the SpaceX and all that Project X stuff, so just call it X Videos. Works for me.
Ha ha ha. Reference to porn website. Wow. That was a terrible video. 5,000 views for that one, huh? Just for taking 3 minutes to say that Elon Musk should make a YouTube competitor? Wow. Low effort. In fairness. So what are you gonna do? So what shall we do next? We have Elliot Hulse, we have Prager U, we have Tate speech, we have this is it time to get over slavery debate. It's 25 minutes, so I doubt we'll watch the whole thing, but at least to get into it a little bit. Freaking Out 99 with a bit says, that wasn't nearly as awful as one of Jeremy's videos, at least the person is kind of fun. Yeah. Mini Lad, a pedophile predator YouTuber, got demonetized. One more step to getting him banned. Nice. I'm not familiar with the individual, but I actually forgot to look at the quartering. Let's see what the quartering's up to. Oh, the quartering changed his channel art, and it looks like the thumbnails and stuff. He probably changed his whole,
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Sammy87, hi Hannah, love the hat. Thank you. It's from a hype train. We did a hype train, so I gotta put a hat on. Jeremy, do you have a video about Brie Larson? Doesn't look like he does. I wish I knew more about Pokimane, because Jeremy talks about her a lot too, but I know literally nothing about her. So I don't think I could bring anything to the table in terms of talking about whatever he's talking about. Oh my god. Jeremy, the idiot. NFL ratings tank. Woke backlash. Jeremy, is it potentially because of the global pandemic and people find it weird to watch sports without a crowd? Because I don't even watch sports, but I know people who do. Actual Jake, big sports fan. He finds it weird watching sports without an audience. I think most people who watch sports do, at least a little bit. I don't think we'll watch Jeremy today. He doesn't have anything good. Good, relatively speaking. Entertaining. Freaking Out 99. Pokimane is so benign, I don't understand why people are so obsessed with her. I don't know anything about her. So, did Pokimane actually do anything effed up, or are weird guys just mad that other weird guys are horny for her? No idea. I'm not familiar with her. I know she's a streamer, but I don't know anything about her. I think Baja has watched her before, if I remember correctly, but I don't know anything about. We have Sargon, we have whatever this is, we have the Libertarian guy. We'll move on to this since this is the recent stuff and the other channel seems dead. The Steven Crowder thing, which I don't want to watch. And then there's a cleanse. What do you guys think? Sargon? We have a vote for Crowder. We have a vote for Sargon. We have a vote for Tate. We have a vote for Elliot. Wow. Very evenly spaced votes so far. Sargon, Tate, wow. Lots of, Sargon? Okay. Sargon wins. Let's see what Sargon's up to. He has a video on cuties, which I'm not touching with a 100-foot pole. Something about, I don't know. Oh, that's a 2-hour-long video. I'm not watching that. Black Lives Matter invades British pop culture. We could watch that. He did do just a Q&A. That might be interesting. We watched the Joe Rogan one where he gets super mad. You want CBS to sue Sargon over what? Did he do something? Sargon is awful in a funny way. Tate just gives me organ failure. Sure, I mean, you can ask me for advice, Arcana Stamper Blackwell. I don't know if I'll be able to help, but if you'd like, sure. Let's do this one, the Black Lives Matter in the UK thing.
So if you don't follow British pop culture TV, I don't blame you because I don't either, but there's a programme called Britain's Got Talent, which is a talent show that apparently has lots of regular guests on. It's been going for years, and a dance group called Diversity, won it 11 years ago for whatever dance it was they did. But you can tell exactly the kind of theme that Diversity as a group have regarding just their name before you get to anything else about them. And recently, this week, they did another dance routine on Britain's Got Talent that was very clearly inspired by Black Lives Matter. As you can see from the picture, this is the guy, the lead dancer, who's getting a knee on the neck from a police officer during the routine. So it's not like they're being subtle about it. It's quite on the nose. At some point, they're like, dance fighting with cops with riot shields, and they dismantle the police in the dance, and all is well. It's all sunshine and roses. Everything's great. But I did quite like the way it was framed. It was framed in the sense of a father speaking to his son about these issues. And, I mean, at least that's a good start, if nothing else. But the thing I found weird is like, right, okay, so it's protesting an event that happened in another country, and
why do people care about events in other countries? I, Sargon, who regularly talk about American politics, never concern myself with the politics of other countries.
For some reason, this is something that British people have to be concerned about.
Sargon, you're concerned about it. You've talked about Black Lives Matter consistently. What are you talking about? Let's go see Sargon's videos on American politics. This is about cuties, which I agree, very fucking questionable movie, but that's, put out by an American company, although it is made by a French director and it's a French film, but still, France is in England, so why are you talking about it if you think we should only talk about issues in our own country? Again, cuties, this appears to be about probably, people looting and stuff during protests, if I had to guess.
These rioters.
There we go. That's American politics and related to Black Lives Matter, so why are you talking about it if you think that you should only talk about politics within your own country? Here's the thing about Trump and banning critical race theory in the federal government. Like, that's clearly about American politics. Let's see, here's a video about Black Lives Matter. Here's a video about Joe Rogan and Spotify, which again is more America-centric. Here we have a thing about looting, which I'd imagine is in relation to some of the few people who have taken advantage of the protests and have used it as an excuse to destroy property and loot. Here we have something about Portland. Here we have something about Joe Biden. Do you see? I could go on and on and on and show what a hypocrite Sargon is for saying things along the lines of, well, why are we talking about Black Lives Matter when we are British and this has nothing to do with us? I don't know, Sargon, why are you talking about it every other day? Be less good faith, Sargon. So much good faith from you. It's overwhelming.
Because the framing of the thing is very much,
no, I haven't talked about cuties. I have no opinion on it. I ain't watching it. And I recognize I've been told the entire point is like, oh, it's about criticizing the sexualization of children. I can understand that, but if the way you're criticizing the sexualization of children is sexualizing child actresses, then I think you've muddled your message. Do you see what I'm saying? Again, that's why I'm not going to talk about it, because I'm not going to see the movie, and because I'm not going to see the movie, I can't have an informed opinion on it, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Well, honestly, it looks very white again.
You sent me your question where? On, just so I know, is it a Twitter DM, or did you whisper it to me?
It's black and black against white. And the implication, I think, that underpins it.
It's not about black against white, Sargon. It's about the police against black individuals. It's not about race war. It's about the fact that black communities are overwhelmingly affected in the United States, more so than white communities in terms of police violence. You're making this out to be like Black Lives Matter is like, we need to fight everyone who isn't the same race as us, and it's not at all what it is. That's incredibly disingenuous.
Is the idea that somehow Britain has the same race.
Oh, highlighted in chat. Oh, there it is. I'm trying to figure out a good way to cut my hair for dysphoria relief without making myself a target because of where I live. Do you have any subtle ways you found to feminize your hairstyles? Ooh, that's tough. You're probably going to want to ask someone who knows more about hair than me, because I'm straight up just, like, growing my hair out. I don't know. I really don't know. You'd have to ask someone with more, like, hair experience than I do. I wish I could help, but I don't have any advice. I really don't. I'm sorry.
Racial problems as America, and it is basically the same, and black people are being oppressed by the police in this country. Now, the statistics don't bear that out.
Yes, they do.
Police...
I'm going to get the air conditioner on because this hat's heating me up.
In this country, as the BBC have noted, are more likely to kill white people than they are black people.
No, not more like... Oh, wait, are you talking about the UK? I don't know about the UK statistics, but we're talking about Black Lives Matter, which is a movement that started in the US, and it's typically about US policing. So, I don't know about the UK. I really don't. But apparently they were doing this in terms of Black Lives Matter, which is an American thing, right? If you're in the UK, if you talk about Black Lives Matter, even if it applies to your country in some way, you're probably talking about America because that's where the big policing issues come into play. In the UK, you have far fewer instances of the police killing individuals, period, much less talking about, like, the racial dynamics involved in that.
As with almost all things in this regard, there are studies that suggest that it's the case in America as well. But let's just...
Okay, so he was talking about the UK, but Carl, they're doing a Black Lives Matter performance, which is more related to American policing issues. And people around, like, the globe did, like, Black Lives Matter protests, right? That doesn't necessarily mean they're facing the exact same problem in their own country. It means they're showing solidarity with Black Lives Matter protesters in the States, because it is primarily an issue for people in the United States. I'm not sure about the specific issues facing people in terms of policing in the UK. Not my purview, not something I've looked into. When we're talking about Black Lives Matter, that's not usually what we're talking about.
Assume for a moment we don't need to worry about digging into the stats for that. We know that the stats, according to government statistics, the number of people who are black who have died in police custody in the last decade has been, I saw two figures, 9 or 11. So, pretty low. And
don't know if you're talking about the US, but it's higher if it's in the US. Just the past year or so, it's about that. So over the past, if we're talking 20, 30 years, it's going to be quite a bit higher. So we must be talking about the UK, or he's being incredibly disingenuous about what numbers he's pulling from.
Obviously, white people are overrepresented in that, because it's going to be from the white working classes who don't get an easy time from the cops. And this performance, being overtly political on what is just a normal family...
Politics on my national stage? Well, I never!
show about people showing off strange and stupid talents, an otherwise apolitical show.
Sargon, I've never seen Britain's Got Talent. I imagine it's fairly similar to America's Got Talent. It's probably a talent show. People come up and do performances. All art, I should say, almost all art, in one way or another, has a message. Sometimes that message is political, sometimes it isn't, but I very much doubt this is the first time something political has come up on a show all about artistic expression.
Raised a bit of ire, and it got a few thousand complaints in the first 3 days, 3,000 complaints or so. And so the lead dancer...
Oh no, 3,000 complaints in a country of UK population. 66 million people, 3,000 of them complained? Well, my goodness. Someone call the Prime Minister. I don't know, UK things. The point is that you can do literally anything on television, and some blue-haired Karen is gonna call and be like, I disagree with the thing you did. It's not indicative of the audience reaction overall.
Ashley Banjo decided to come out and defend himself. And this is what he's saying. He said on Instagram, art, the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, producing works to be primarily appreciated for their beauty or emotional power. My truth, my platform, my art, I've always tried to create not only to entertain but also to inspire. That will never change.
Also, Sargon, just the other day, weren't you complaining that you got not kicked off, your episodes of Joe Rogan? We watched this video the other day. You were complaining for 9 minutes about the fact that you and some other people who are deemed controversial, your videos weren't ported on Joe Rogan's podcast to Spotify, where he just signed the $100 million exclusivity deal. So in this case, when Sargon's political opinions are the ones that are being silenced by a private entity, he's against it. But when another person he disagrees with has their political positions platformed, now he's against it. Do you see the problem here?
Our lives begin the day we become. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. With MLK Jr. I'm so grateful and overwhelmed by all the support, but also the amount of conversation this performance has thrown up. 2020 has been such a historical year. One day we'll look back and realise it was the start of real change. Sending out nothing but love and positivity to everyone reading this post. Now, that's a good message. That's a good response. But then you've got this separate Instagram response, because the complaints kept coming. And after a while, they'd soared up to 7,581. Now, the complaints is Ofcom, which is an independent regulatory body.
Oh no, a bunch of white supremacist Karens called the BBC. I'm so upset. Dude, no one cares. No one cares what stupid UKIP voters or whoever's calling about, I didn't like that they did a Black Lives Matter thing. No one cares. It doesn't matter.
And that's a lot of complaints. I mean, it's not like the British public don't complain, but usually they're just, frankly, too lazy, and I'm one...
No. People like this who feel like they need to take the time and actually call or write letters to say that they were displeased with something they saw on the television are never too lazy to complain. I've told you guys the story of, like, my grandmother, when I was like 4 years old, driving all the way back to McDonald's because I wasn't happy with the Happy Meal toy. These kind of people have nothing better to do than to waste other people's time with their little opinions of, like, I didn't like the thing. I don't like that there's curry restaurants near me now, so I'm gonna vote for Brexit. You know, just dumb shit opinions. These people have all the energy and time in the world to complain, and everyone's sick of it. No one cares, Sargon. Grow up.
One of these people who's to bother sending an email or writing a letter to, you've got to go find out who the local ombudsman is, what group is overseeing whatever is being done here, who is it you've got to go and complain to. And so the fact that 7,500 people had gone and complained about this is significant. That's a large percentage of the audience compared to the normal number of complaints you receive from anything, really. But as you can see, this went up to 10,000 complaints. Again, this was only yesterday. This had passed 10,000 complaints. And so the cast continued to respond to it, and Ashley posted this on his Instagram again. For the people sending this, you do not represent or speak for the great British public. Silence was never and will never be an option. Change is inevitable. Get used to it. Right. So that's sounding a lot more like an ultimatum, isn't it?
Alan, the Lord of Shadows, thank you for following. Sargon's mad that people are fed up with this chud nonsense. Sargon, I agree. It's the time for having honest discussions with people like you has long since passed. You've made it very clear none of you are willing to have good faith discussions about this. You don't actually think all lives matter or whatever bullshit opinion you're trying to push this week to try and push back against cultural progressive reforms. All you want is for people on the left to shut up. And no! Progress is inevitable. The only constant in the history of the world is change. If you can't handle that, then go inside and shut up. You don't get to participate in society anymore. I'm sorry that offends you. Ironic considering you tend to consider people on the left snowflakes. But objective reality, if it offends you, that sucks. Sucks to be you. Deal with it, suck it up, and learn to move on with your life. That's the moral you should be getting here. Really? You're like, I'm offended. As Sargon of Akkad, a man who has literally made jokes about assaulting women or choosing not to assault them because I think they're ugly in my political UKIP campaign. I'm very offended that someone told me that I don't speak for the British public. Ugh. No one believes you, Sargon. Carl. Bud. No one believes this boo-hoo, I'm offended you were mean to me thing coming from you. You can't throw rocks at other people and then get mad when someone throws one back. And they're not even throwing a rock. They're like holding up a sign that's like, hey, F you for throwing rocks. And then you're like, oh, that sign's offensive to me. Stop. Stop with your perpetual victimhood. It is so tiring, and everyone who has witnessed the past 4 years is so entirely tired of it that we're not even going to pretend to entertain it. So shut up. Nimnix, thanks for subscribing.
I mean,
4 months
who does represent or speak for the great British public, if not the members of the public, all 10,000 of them who...
All 10,000. The entire population of the UK. 10,000. I know we just Googled and saw that it was 66 million, but these 10,000 agree with Carl, so they're the real British public. Sargon gets more pathetic by the day.
Who've decided they've watched your show.
I genuinely, my God, like, I cannot express enough how little I care about the racial makeup of society. I do not care what color people are, what their ethnic background is, or national background, whatever. I do not care. So, boy, just because it hurts Sargon, I would love if he lives to be 120 years old, and he wakes up every day as a 120-year-old man and walks outside, and everyone around him has a darker skin hue than himself, and it makes him greatly uncomfortable, and he goes to sleep every night wondering if he'll wake up the next morning considering, did I waste my life? Society didn't collapse because the racial makeup of a country changed. Everything's fine. Did I waste my life being hateful? And I hope one night he finally realizes, yes, I did. And that's the night. That's the night that he doesn't wake up the next day. Anyway.
They didn't like the fact that it was excessively politicised, and they've written in their letters of complaint. Who does represent the British public, if not the British public writing in their letters of complaint? Is it you? Is it London? Does London represent Britain at large? Because it's not much about London that actually seems to represent the majority of the country.
I mean, it's probably the highest population center in the country, so it's probably where most of the people in the country live, statistically. This is similar to when conservatives in the United States are like, all you people in New York and LA and Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., you liberal elitists, you don't know the real America. You just listed all the places where most of the people in the country live. Do you think they don't count as America because they have more than 10 people per square mile? Real Americans live in Montana, where there are more cows than people, and where if I have a medical emergency, I have to call an ambulance that's gonna come in the form of a helicopter to take me to a hospital 200 miles away. Real Americans live in the middle of nowhere, where the nearest black person, the nearest, oh god, I'm running low on my improv juice. Real Americans live in the middle of nowhere, where the nearest black person, is really far away. I don't have a punchline for that one. I'm getting lazy.
But silence never and never will be, was never and never will be an option. Well, I mean, ostensibly we have free speech in this country, so no one's asking you to be silent. They're just complaining that a talent show allowed an overtly political act to perform, which is not unreasonable. If other political groups can't perform at this talent show and aren't given the opportunity to, why should you be given it? What makes you special? And the final thing is the one that bothered me. Change is inevitable. Get used to it. I don't like being spoken to that way.
I don't like facts being read to me in a way that don't coddle my right-wing conservative attitude. Wah!
I mean, change is inevitable, but it's not always going to be the kind of change you like, is it?
Yeah, get used to it. That's kind of the whole point. Fuck you, Sargon.
I think that a lot of people are complaining that there's a lot of change going on that they really don't like.
I know you don't like it, Sargon, but you're, surprisingly and ironically enough, in this situation, you're the minority. You are. You're the very loud minority. And I know it makes you sad, and it makes you mad, that the march of progress is unrelenting, and it will never stop, and you already lost on gay marriage. You're gonna lose on trans rights. You're gonna lose on police reform. But nonetheless, you're like holding on and like, no, my backward worldview is the right one. You can't show me any evidence to the contrary. Sargon, get used to it. I want you to be spoken to like that every day for the rest of your life. Get used to it, old man. The future is now.
But you obviously do, because I guess it promotes #diversity. But change isn't a constant. It doesn't...
Yes, it is! Yes, it is! Literally, look up any history book. Change is not only a constant, it's the only constant. History has never been like, all right, guys, we got it. We perfected society. We perfected human history. No more changes from here on out. We're gonna get that stuff that they put on puzzles when you finish them, so they glue together and you can put them up on the wall, and we're gonna do that to human cultural progress, and it's just never gonna move, like the Lego movie. Nope! Not how things work.
Just flow in one direction. It can go both ways, can't it?
So Sargon is unironically advocating here for like, but actually, I'd like society to go backwards, please. Nope.
And you better be very careful about the sort of the table you're laying and the seats that you pull up to it, because you may find people who are pulling up who you didn't want at the dinner table, but now you can't get rid of. And
I wasn't gonna advocate for fascist right-wing opinions, but then someone did hashtag diversity and now I'm a fascist. This is really you guys' fault on the left. Bold position to take, but okay.
And I really think this is a concern that you're going to have to deal with in, say, I don't know, the next 10 years or so, if you keep taking this attitude.
If you don't coddle my fascist right-wing sensibilities, I'm gonna do a revolution on you, and then we're gonna force you to what? What's your threat here, Sargon? Please. I'm all ears. Stop being a coward. You're getting real close. You're tiptoeing over your mask off line here. Please tell me, what do you think your plan is in the next 10 years, provided that progressivism as a whole continues unabated? Please, I would love to hear what you think is going to happen, or what you would like to happen, because I have a feeling the second that you're open and honest about that is the day your YouTube gets deleted, because you'll openly be calling for some sort of armed revolution. I cannot believe how stupid you are, that you think you can say this and be like, this is a dog whistle. No one will see what I'm saying here.
And it's not like your co-dancers had any kind of better responses. Even though, like I said, Ashley's original response, the tone and tenor of it were just fine. I found nothing objectionable there, even if I disagree with what he is representing. I mean, yeah, you know, you can perform your art in your own way. If people complain and Britain Got Talent takes action because of the complaints, well, okay. What can I do? I don't care. But this is not the way to respond to it, is it?
Shut up, Sargon. This is so disingenuous. People as far right as Sargon do not care about the method or way in which you talk about progressivism or social justice or civil rights. They do not care. We have seen time and time again, whether it's a protest during the anthem and someone kneels, they boo. That's not the right time to do it. Not like that. If we take time after the anthem and say, like, we're going to have a moment of silence to talk about, to think about, you know, the injustices going on, they boo. No, not that way. When you take to the streets and peacefully protest, boo. No, not that way. When people actually get mad when the police start beating them up and you retaliate, boo. No, violent thugs, not that way. It's never been about, and listen to me, please. If you ever listen to me on anything, listen to me on this. It has never been about the form of the protest. They argue and try and hit at the form of the protest because they know that the second they be honest and say it's not about the form of the protest, it's about the fact that they disagree that people are talking about this, like, justice issue, they know that people will immediately peg them as assholes for thinking that. So they don't do it. So they say, oh, well, we just don't think this is the correct tone, or this isn't the right time, this isn't the right context. It's like a proxy war, because they know if they get into the actual discussion in an honest, good faith way, they will lose. And they have lost that argument. So this is all they can resort to. It's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's disgusting. These people are awful.
One of them saying, they can kiss my black ass, after saying change is inevitable, get used to it. I mean,
and we all know Sargon, who told a political rival, I wouldn't even RAPE you. He's all about decorum and respect. Stop, Sargon. Stop it. You disingenuous. See you next Tuesday. You're the worst. You're the worst kind of person. And this smarmy, smug, oh, I just feel that they should be a little nicer. No one buys it. No one except your little band of, like, little fascists who like your videos believes it. MMO Addicted with 10 bits. Hey, I'm not happy that like 3 to 6% of the protests involve violence, but I know this is necessary with how effed up America is. I wish it didn't have to happen, but life is sadly not a nice story. Sure. Tucker White 24. Oh Christ, what's Sargon reeing about this time? He's mad that people were mean to him about not liking Black Lives Matter.
What exactly do you want people to take away from that?
We would like you to shut up, Sargon. We would like you to realize that this is a losing battle for you and you're just making things harder for everyone else. So stop it. So stop. Instead of commenting on politics and making a jerk of yourself with every new video you put on the platform, become like I don't know, like a My Little Pony fan channel. We'll just have Carl Benjamin talking about My Little Pony, and people can be free to like that, and he can have angry opinions on it, like, I don't like this new gen of ponies. Twilight Sparkle is not being held up to the standard that the last gen of ponies held her up to. She is supposed to be Princess Equestria's second in command. This is ridiculous. And he can be as mad about it as he wants there.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Sequester Sargon and his type into talking about inconsequential things so the adults can deal with politics. I'm gonna run for president on that. Idiots like Sargon, by law decree, shall only talk about things that don't matter so adults can actually fix problems. Vote Hannah 2020. MMO Addicted with 10 bits. Sorry, it's midnight here. What I'm trying to say is I wish folks did have to put themselves in danger for stuff to change. Not to say BLM is violent, quite the opposite, if one looks at the stats. Yeah, the protests have been largely peaceful. You didn't know Jake's Trash Can had a stream now?
I want to take away that, you're concerned about their...
Twilight is third or fourth in command. I don't know anything about My Little Pony. I haven't really watched it. So I was basing all that information off of a Jenny Nichols video I watched. So apologies for people who like My Little Pony. I haven't seen it. Do you think he would be complaining if the actress was white? I think he'd be complaining if the actress... Well, I think his avenue of attack would be different. I think his avenue of attack would be like, oh, look... a white liberal with white guilt trying to tell me what to do. That would be his avenue attack then. Like, they're pretty predictable, people like this. Like, oh, you can't be a white person and be an ally, is basically how they deal with it when it's something like that.
Concerns, you're on their side. This isn't a political attack at them. It's a political attack at the institutions of another country, because that's surely what it is. The next day, the number of complaints to Ofcom had gone up by 50%. 15,500 now have gone in, which makes
Sargon,
it probably...
We know there's a bunch of idiots in the UK. Brexit won. We know.
The most complained about thing ever. But that is a staggering number of individual complaints that people have leveled because of a TV show. So I'm just saying, maybe it's not time to break out the articles that say things like, "Dear racists, Britain's got black talent too, because this is not going to stop the complaints from coming in. This is not the problem."
Sargon, this is what you still don't get. No one in adult society who is reasonable cares what you think. It doesn't matter. Society and progress will continue. Again, I agree, there are times in history where things go backwards, and those are always dark times. But I think Martin Luther King Jr. said it best when he said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." There are times when we go backwards, but in the end we tend to continually move forward in terms of rights for individuals and making sure people are treated fairly. It doesn't mean we can't retreat into worse times, but it does mean that over time we will fight our way back and continue to progress. So, Sargon, if in the next 10 years things get even fascier, and let's say Trump wins this election and somehow, like, decides, like, I'm getting a third and fourth term, and after I leave, my son is going to become the president, and there's going to be no election. It would require a lot of really BS things to happen, but let's say something like that happened. It would be an incredibly dark time in modern history. But nonetheless, at some point, that would end, and we would continue progressing. It's always how society has worked, and no matter how many times fascist idiots decide to come and try and push the march of progress backwards, it doesn't stop the fact that eventually they will be pushed back and progress will continue.
Problem, no one ever thought there was no talent.
MMO addicted with 10 bits. Anyways, last of my bits, going to slumber now. I appreciate you, Hannah. Thanks for being an amazing bicon. Thank you. Hope you have a good night.
In the black community. That's not what people have been saying. I don't know why the Mirror is doing this, but this is not the question that is being asked, and this is definitely not the answer that people want to hear. This is just you saying we have the cultural authority, the power, the political capital at the moment to make this happen, and get used to it, kiss my black ass, and you're a racist are not good answers.
Oh, Sargon's feelings are hurt because he got called out for being racist. World's smallest violin.
Questions that are being raised here. People do not feel like their country is being respected. When you use an event in another country in order to denigrate this country and
Sargon, all your
like
70 to 80% of your output is about American politics. Like, the hypocrisy could not be higher. Tucker White 24. Granted, I'm no expert on the cultural or political atmosphere in England, and Carl's a failed politician now, but is there really not a more pressing matter than what Sargon's screeching about? Sargon's gonna complain, and he's gonna concern troll and try and whip up his little fan base into a bunch of, like, faux righteous anger about, like, I don't like Black Lives Matter, and in the end, it's not gonna amount to anything. There are better things to talk about, there are more important things to talk about, but not for Carl, because his entire job is doing a grift. It's not like he's gonna get into politics, he already tried that, and he failed miserably, so we wind up what we have here, you know? Sargon just being mad and trying to wring as much money out of this, like, anti-SJW grift as he still can. I mean, the dude, this has 170,000 views, but he used to get more views than this. His other channel had over 1 million subscribers, and he's down to 366 on this one. Like, the anti-SJW grift, I don't know if it'll ever fully go away, just the goalposts on what's considered an SJW will change as they always do. But, like, the days of making a video about Anita Sarkeesian and getting 3 million views and making a bunch of ad revenue, they're over. They are over, and they're not coming back. Sargon has to try and get as much money out of this grift as possible while he can. Because he can't be doing this when he's 60. He just can't. Like, he already looks ridiculous doing this.
The people who live in it, who you call racist, and let's be clear, the left has currently arrived at the position where literally every white person who likes their country is a white supremacist.
No, Sargon. It's white people who are unwilling to look at racial issues in this country and admit that they happen, whether we're talking about the US or the UK. That's the issue. It's not about liking your country. It's about blindly loving your country so much that you overlook serious flaws that are harming minority communities. So the disingenuous way that you're framing this issue, I would laugh, but it's not funny. So stop. Tucker White 24. Granted, I'm no expert on the cultural or political atmosphere in England, and Carl's a failed... Oh no, I read that one already. Was there a different thing that happened? Did someone follow? I thought I heard like a ding, like something happened, but I must have been wrong.
Anyone who wants to actually defend what we have, like our institutions, our democracy, our cultural...
Your culture and your democracy are not under fire, Sargon. You think that your culture is Britain being majority white. That's the problem, and that's not what culture is. Culture is not the racial makeup of your country. You can have naturalized immigrants come in and not only partake of your culture and become a part of it, but add to that culture. That's the history of the United States. And we have a wonderful culture built off the backs of, like, so many different cultures of the immigrants who came in and became a part of this country. That's just going to happen everywhere over time, and that's a great thing. That's cool. That's a very cool thing. Humanity is reaching a point where people can go to other countries relatively easily. I say relatively, I know that immigration is still a very difficult task, but nonetheless, I'm talking about in terms of, like, travel itself. Of course, there are issues with actually, like, having the money to go someplace, but I'm talking about, like, you can get there by car or plane or train or boat. And this is just going to continue. People are going to mix with one another culturally. They're going to have kids. Those kids are going to have kids.
Nothing funny about
like,
the tools of
global
capitalism.
culture and globalization are here, and they're happening, whether you like it or not. It's just down to how we react to that. Do we accept the fact that this is the new norm and recognize that and move forward with the understanding and policy-making viewpoints that this is a good thing, that people are coming together in ways they never have before? Or are we going to try and, like, writhe against it in such a way as to only hurt ourselves, like a dog that's tied against a tree, so they start thrashing to try and, like, get away, but all they do is hurt themselves? And that's what Sargon and people like him are doing. They're trying to run away from the inevitable progress of society, and in doing so, they're choking themselves on the collars that they've built for themselves. Like, it's ridiculous. Devious Chillster with 25 bits. Mr. quote, killed an entire party because of an RAPE joke is telling black people to be nicer in their political comments. Retching noises. Yeah.
And constitutional heritage, all of these things that every other country is completely entitled to defend.
Dude, culture is not like an immutable thing. Culture changes over time. That's a huge part of culture, is how it changes.
My blessing, by the way, there's no reason that people in Britain would not feel the same way. And attacking them on those grounds seems counterproductive at best.
If we're going to talk about counterproductive, again, acting as though culture doesn't change and that it's something you not only can but should expend energy fighting against, that is counterproductive.
And the thing that annoys me about the very way that this is framed is that me saying Britain defending its cultural heritage.
No, because that's not what you're doing, Sargon. You're using that as a dog whistle because you consider Britain's cultural heritage to be in its entirety like homogeneic white people. That's what you consider British culture, and it's just not. Like, I'm not gonna pretend I'm the biggest, like, Anglophile out there. I'm not gonna say I know the most about British culture, but like any country, your culture is not tied to the color of the skin of the people who take part in it. It just isn't.
Its institutions and its way of life is not a racial statement.
It is from you, though, because you've talked about this before, and we've heard you talk about this before, where you talk about the fact that you don't consider, like, non-white Britons real Britons. You said something to the effect of, London is no longer primarily British, and your evidence for this was that a bunch of people in England, a large percentage of those who live in London at this point, are not white. And the reason that you consider, like, why else would you be like, oh, the majority of London is non-British? Why? Because some of the British people who live there aren't white? They're still British, Sargon. You absolute idiot. And you know this. Stop trying to further dog whistle your dog whistles by being like, by the way, I'm not dog whistling. Yes, you are, and your other statements back that up. Isn't the epitome of British culture tea? Does he think tea came from white people? He probably does.
as the left would be the first people to say, well, Britain's always been multicultural, we've always had people of many different races here. Yeah? Then shut up about it. Then...
You first!
When I say, hey, I'm interested in being a patriot, I like what Britain is. I like what Britain's done in the world. I like...
Britain's done a lot of bad stuff. Imperialism, Carl. We really gonna have the imperialism discussion? I feel like there's only 3 minutes left in this video, and I don't think we have time to have that discussion.
The constitutional and moral reforms to the world that Britain has been at the
Oh no, he's literally being like, the moral reforms to the world that Britain has... I had to invade those countries, not because I wanted to steal their resources, but because I wanted to promote British morality? No. That ain't gonna fly, Sargon. Stop. The East India Trading Company famously was like, we might make some money on this, guys, but really our first primary goal is to, you know, spread white Christian morals.
forefront of, and when I say that, I'm not just talking about white people, but you will hear that, won't you? That's
yes,
the dog whistle.
Because the other words that you have said about this, again, like when you said, the majority of people in London are no longer British, and what you meant by that, literally, was that you were saying, oh, the majority of British people in London at this point are no longer just white people. That shows your hand. You've shown your hand enough in the past that people can rightly extrapolate what you mean now. People are not stupid, Sargon. Let me rephrase. Enough people aren't stupid that they see through this stuff. Come on.
White people. That means white people. That means... No, it doesn't. No.
Yes, it does. You can say it doesn't all you want, but until you successfully explain to someone, what do you mean by British culture that can't be continued even though the makeup of Britain is changing? What about British culture is somehow in some way destructed by these changes in particular? Until you can explain that, yeah, people are going to assume you mean white because that's what you've said in the past.
No one could suggest that Britain's history is not intertwined with other races than white people. No one would suggest that. Would be stupid.
That history intertwined with white people has a lot to do with dominating and suppressing other cultures around the world, though. Quite a different situation to, you know, legal immigration into Britain, changing the racial makeup of the population, which is clearly what you're talking about.
And I'm a product of that history. So I want...
Unfortunately, someone needs to go into the past and do like a butterfly effect thing so Carl Benjamin isn't born. That'd be nice.
So I want to continue that legacy. It's a good legacy. Like, it brought my family, parts of my family, out of slavery. I think that's really good. And so
I think Sargon found, like 1% of his DNA was African or something. And because of that, he now holds on to that and acts like he's able to talk about racial issues as if his family has a high, like, black amount. It's so stupid.
So I get really annoyed when the people who want to defend this kind of legacy of liberty that Britain promoted around the world...
You hear that, Gandhi? We're promoting liberty now. Eat a sandwich.
People who want to defend that are not racists. This is
I'm not racist. I just think I think the British Empire was really trying to bring liberty to all those people they conquered, frankly. Oh my god.
Completely inappropriate if you think that Britain is a multicultural society and has a multiracial history, whether it's in these islands or elsewhere abroad. If you think that Britain has been affected by diversity, as surely you must, then don't just sit there calling the people who like Britain racist.
It's not because you like Britain, Sargon. It's not because you like Britain. It's because you spend all your time harping on things like Black Lives Matter. Something that is hypocritical in the face of the fact that here you're saying, like, why is Britain's Got Talent talking about Black Lives Matter? That's a British institution. Okay, well, Sargon, you're a British man, right? You're a British dude who has a British flag in the background, who ran for, like, a British political office. So why in the heck would you be talking about Black Lives Matter all the time?
I'm not going to go through this because it is as patronizing and condescending and just flat wrong as you might think. I mean, look at the very first... there are loads of adverts and whatnot on it. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin to think. Oh, thanks, Mirror. I couldn't think before you came along.
Articles? How do they work?
There have been 10,000 complaints about a dance. No, there have been 10,000 complaints about the needless politicization of...
Oh no! An interpretive dance made me feel feelings. I better write an angry letter. Sargon, what political... I would love to know. What about Black Lives Matter do you find to be inherently politically repugnant? Because clearly you think it's not just that it's politics. It's that it's a political opinion you don't agree with, which you've already stated. So what specifically about Black Lives Matter do you find so offensive that it shouldn't be put on television? I'd love to know.
Family-friendly television. Just politically neutral, like, just normie content has been outright politicized by a radical ideology that has some...
Hey, could you not shoot me because of the color of my skin? Radical political ideology! Sargon is exhausting.
Seriously bizarre views on race, racial interactions, and the structures that were so desirable for the immigrants who moved here. The political, legal, and social structures, institutions.
Hey, Sargon, I hate to break it to you, bud, but, black people in the States, their ancestors didn't make a decision to come here. I don't know how to... I have a bit of a history lesson for you if you want to hear it. It's a doozy.
That were so desirable for those people to come here. You have turned this around and told everyone that these are not only undesirable, but outright oppressive.
If you criticize literally anything about a country ever and don't act like everything is perfect all the time, then you hate that country. Galaxy brain.
Evil. They are seeking to make white people supreme and oppress black people. That's just not true. It's a lunatic perspective.
That's not what Black Lives Matter is about, Sargon. It's about the disproportionate force used on black individuals. Usually, when we're referring to Black Lives Matter, we're talking in the United States, where we have police violence issues in general, but they disproportionately affect black communities. Thank you to Catalina Gearbox. $10 donation. Sargon pushes the idea that Black Lives Matter means only Black Lives Matter and thinks that Black Lives Matter is a racist movement. Go figure. Yeah, we watched a video a while back where Sargon was talking about, like, why can't I say all lives matter? Because Sargon, that's not what we're talking about. Not what we're talking about, okay? When we say Black Lives Matter, there's an implied also at the end of it.
You have been subverted. You have turned on the very people who led the crusade to free the slaves.
Sargon. Bud. I understand that Great Britain legally freed their slaves relatively early compared to other places in the world, including the United States, which was one of the last countries in the Western world to do away with slavery. However, that doesn't erase the fact that there were generations and generations and hundreds of years prior, where they gladly took part in the slave trade. I'm not saying that you can't accept that they also outlawed slavery at some point, but you need to accept both. Outlawing slavery does not undo the hundreds of years of profiting off of the backs of said slaves. You get that, right? This is like dumb people who are like, you're welcome for freeing you in the Civil War, and it's like, whoa, bud. Whoa, you act like slavery was like a natural, like, state of being that they had to be broken out from, but they were just there anyway. No, they had to be enslaved first. It's ridiculous.
I will not be surprised if this continues to rack up complaints. I will not be surprised at all. I won't be surprised if you send your own Ofcom complaint and say, well, look, why are you politicizing this? Why is this being shoved in the face of me, my family?
Why are you making me see that my country isn't perfect? Not even your country. This is about America. Why are you making me see that Daddy America isn't perfect? I just want to suckle on Donald Trump's teat and wave an American flag, even though I'm British. Let's see, MMO Addicted with 50 bits. Hannah, please watch this. It made me want to puke at how yikes it is. It's just 2 minutes. Okay, depending on what it is, maybe. Oh, it's from an anti-mask protest. Okay, and then The Distant Red with a bit. I'd be down if people who say all lives matter appended something like Native Americans are still oppressed by society and disproportionately killed in police encounters, but it tends to be just white people saying, I matter too. Yep. It's a bunch of narcissistic white people not being able to handle the fact that something isn't about them for 5 seconds. It's very annoying.
I mean, my kids when we sat down eating dinner. I didn't choose for this to be the case. I didn't want this. This is not what your program is supposed to be about, especially...
Oh no! You made my kids watch a dance that exposed them to the political realities of the world. I wanted to insulate my children from the real world until they were 18, so when they go out on their own, they have absolutely no idea how to navigate the complicated political landscape we find ourselves in. Oh, does that make you look stupid? Weird.
If you're not platforming other ideologies, if we're going to have to politicize everything, well then, okay, let's hear from some other people. But of course, we won't.
Sargon, you know what this means? It's time for Sargon to put together a dance crew. Cut to montage of Sargon fighting a dance group that's all white supremacists. We're gonna be the All Lives Matter gang. We're gonna pop and lock and teach you folks why actually the plight of minorities doesn't matter. I entertain myself too much with the fake movies I make in my head. There'll be one character that is like so on whether or not they're like a white supremacist or whatever, and then their arc through the movie is like Sargon's the father figure, and he's like, "No, bud, really though, that brown person, I don't give a shit about them, and you shouldn't either." And then at the climax, he's like, "You're right, Sargon. I shouldn't care about people who look different than me." And then he does like the worm or something. Sargon, make that movie. You have almost $1 million in net worth. Please. Mortgage your house to make that movie. I really want to watch it. Devious Chillster with 25 bits. I love how transparent it is that it's always conservatives who are like, keep politics out of this because it shows that their ideas are so flimsy that if you don't keep kids away from it, they won't be conservatives in their head. Yep.
Don't, because this is a special privilege that is being meted out.
And one of the dancers is Doomcock. Ooh, it's Sargon. It's the quartering. And his arc in the movie will be his wife wants to leave him. And she's constantly out getting pizza without him. Ooh, we gotta cast this movie. Sargon, Jeremy, Stefan Molyneux, Nick Fuentes. And then Nick can have a subplot where he's on and off with that cat boy streamer that he went on the date with. And then we need like a young, an unknown actor to play the final member, who's the young person who has to be turned to like be on the side of Sargon and friends. He's like a really good dancer. He makes the dance crew, but he's not so sure about the political beliefs. Played by Tom Holland. If Tom Holland wasn't such a nice guy, that would be the cast for that. Oh, Doyle! Yes! John Doyle! That's perfect. He's only 21 years old and he's yes. They can walk into the subway. No. We gotta get Jeremy and Sargon talking. And they have like an Iron Man, Captain America dynamic where they like get along, but not all the time. And they're like, we gotta find someone. And Jeremy's like, I know a guy. And then it cuts to Subway and they go in ding ding, the thing on the door dings, and we see John Doyle popping and locking, and he's making people subs at Subway, but with wicked dance moves, and there's a crowd like, yeah, go John, go John. This is an origin story for John Doyle. This is, canonically, this takes place before he starts the Heck Off Commie YouTube channel, and this explains how he got to that point. And they're like, and Jeremy's like, I come here to get subs all the time. And Sargon's like, they're better sub place, and Jeremy's like, I know, but I don't have the self-respect to get a good sub. Make this movie, someone! I want to see it so bad! Anyway, Dudes Spankin' Dudes, this sounds like a great fan fiction in the making. Does this movie need Kanye? Kanye can be one of the judges at the dance contest at the end. He's a guest judge. Anyway, did I miss anything else? I think that's it. Okay, let's finish this video. We've reached the peak comedy moment of this video, so I don't even know why we're finishing it, but I guess we should.
Along racial lines, which, to be honest with you, is probably the very root moral conflict that the people writing in and complaining are complaining about. I don't think there should be any kind of racial preferencing in any of our public life, and this is what these people are doing. Totally opposed to it. But
what Sargon means by that is he doesn't want any laws that correct for inherent bias that exists in society. He just wants bias that already exists to go by unabated. If Doyle got a haircut, he'd be hot. He's a terrible person, but a hot lay. Oh, Doyle's like, I shouldn't comment on people's looks. Doyle's pretty twinky, though, you know? Like, if he wasn't awful and probably a closet fascist, then yeah, he'd be fine.
That's because I'm a liberal. That's because I think that people should be treated on an individual.
Liberal, asterisk. Logarth with 10 bits. That's a textbook uppity minority argument, yeah. I ran for UKIP, but I'm a liberal, by the way. Sargon, no one believes you at this point. How can you possibly say that and think anyone believes you?
Level, and we shouldn't be promoting racial ideologies. I'm a throwback like that, but and it's this kind of attitude that got me demonetized. So if you would like to support our channel, you can remember that diversity is strength, nothing but strength. Change is coming. Get used to it. I'll see you in the next video, folks.
Jesus Christ, Sargon. Ridiculous. That's enough of Sargon for the day. Someone make that dance movie, though. Like, and give me a cameo. Give me a cameo in the movie. I don't know who I'd be in the movie. Maybe I'm one of the judges at the end, or a cameo's got to be briefer than that. So I got to be like Like when they win and the trophy comes out, I'll be the person who hands them the dance trophy, and I'll be wearing this stupid hat, and people who didn't see this will be like, why is the person handing the trophy wearing a stupid steampunk hat? That's my cameo appearance in the movie. Then people in the theater, then it's like, who's that in the hat? Oh, that's the person who came up with the idea for the movie. Oh. Can you link a clip? Yeah, go for it. So that's the Sargon video for the day. I don't know how we're gonna top this. We've already almost been here 2 hours.
Tools of capitalism.
Wind chanter with 10 bits. Open onto a city street, pan down, Jeremy and Sargon talking in front of a sandwich shop. You can see John Doyle making sandwiches in the background. A black SUV pulls up and starts firing. John pulls an assault rifle from the bread rack and returns fire, saving them. Dude spanking dudes. F it, I'll make the fanfic if you want. I mean, I'll read it if you make it. I guess this is the clip of the thing I literally just did. Sargon, you know what this means? It's time for Sargon to put together a dance crew. Cut to montage of Sargon fighting a dance group that's all white supremacists. We're gonna be the All Lives Matter gang. We're gonna pop and lock and teach you folks why actually the plight of minorities doesn't matter. I entertain myself too much with the fake movies I make in my. That is funny. Oh yeah, and then Tate at there's an end credit scene where they're all. I was gonna say they're at a shawarma place, but that's too ethnic for them. They definitely don't want to go to a shawarma restaurant. At the end of the movie, there's a scene where they're eating at some restaurant, and then a Lamborghini pulls up, and the door opens. And it's Tate. And he walks in and he goes, gentlemen, I want to talk to you about the douchebag initiative. And that's the setup for the internet Chud. Oh no, it'll be the Chud initiative. Gentlemen, I want to talk to you about the Chud initiative. And Chud will stand for something, but it's like they're Avengers. Freaking Out 99. This sounds like a South Park episode, except Cartman is Sargon. Yeah. Applebee's. Yes, they're at Applebee's. Oh no! Oh no! It's Tate pulls up and it's Tate and Ben Shapiro together. Okay, I gotta stop. I'll just talk about this the whole stream. And that's not a good use of my time. Conservative hyper ultra division Chud. Yeah, that's okay. That's good. I'd watch this movie.
There's nothing
Hannah, if Tate and Ben Shapiro were in a room, Tate would kill Ben. Yeah, but that's the fun of it. It'll be like the first Avengers movie where they're all kind of fighting with each other, but at the end of the movie, AOC is the Loki of the movie, and she's trying to usher in a new world order where, I don't know, the police are defunded and the Green New Deal has replaced all other jobs, and the gang has to get together to stop AOC. And then at the end credits, there's like a Thanos moment, and the camera pans up and it's a darkened figure, and then it's Bernie Sanders. I gotta stop or I'll just keep going. No more. Stop giving me ideas or else this will just be the whole stream. Dudes spanking dudes. Oh no, I read that one. Wind chanter. I just want to give Hannah all the money she needs to make all the terrible movies that pop into her head.
There's nothing funny about the tools.
That's
of
my
capitalism.
secret, Captain. I've never made a P word wet. AOC changed WAP to be the national anthem. Can you do the Crowder video? It's him just harassing a trans person. I cannot deal with it. I can watch, like, I can try, but the second I nope out of this, we're done with it, because I just can't do it.
Outside for you.
No, I'd like you to keep it here for when the police arrive. Our tires and teach us lessons ensuring that we'll never make ourselves vulnerable again. How do we know that he, she, Z meant business? Because he, she, Z said so while recruiting the same friends who helped him deface the Robert E. Lee statue at UT. Silly. That's a crime too.
Nope.
Hundreds have gathered here in front of the Washington County Administration building calling for the end of a mask mandate, saying they are tired of not living their normal lives.
No more masks! No more masks! Not on the backs of my kids, or you're gonna get more federal funding. That's how I feel about that.
A passionate call for action Friday morning in St. George. Several police officers on standby as many locals called concerns about coronavirus spikes overblown.
The flu kills more.
No, it doesn't.
There's nothing
I
funny
can't.
about
Nope,
the
I can't
tools
deal
of
with that either.
capitalism.
Wind Chanter with a bit. Anything you make will be better than Channel Awesome. That's probably true. Not a high bar, though. What else
There's
do we
nothing funny about
have?
the tools of capitalism.
Let's do Prager U. I said I was going to do this Prager U video. Devious Chilcher with 100 bits. I would literally rather eat my own ass with a fork and knife than listen to Steven Crowder for any amount of time. Let's do the Prager U, and then we'll do a cleanse, and then we'll do Tate or some other stuff. So this is Prager U's What's Wrong
There's
with
nothing
Wind
funny
and
about
Solar
the tools of
Power.
capitalism.
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. I'm telling you that much. You never seen my dog grooming cleanse? Hold on, let me pull that up for a cleanse later.
And then
Have you ever heard of unobtainium? It's the magical energy mineral found on the planet Pandora in the movie Avatar. It's a fantasy in a science fiction script.
There's nothing
But
funny
environmentalists
about
think
the
they
tools
found
of
it here on Earth
capitalism.
in the form of wind and solar power.
No, that's not the case. Unobtainium, again, which by the way is it's almost like in the script James Cameron was like, what am I gonna call this unobtainable mineral? Unobtainium. We'll rename it later, but it's like he forgot to actually change the name. No. Environmentalists recognize that on this Earth, for energy, for most of our industrial age, we have primarily been using fossil fuels to fuel the industrial age that we are benefiting from. Now, it's done a lot of great things. It's built cities and led to all sorts of innovations, and that's great. But unfortunately, we found, and this is scientifically true, we found that the emissions from those fossil fuels have led to a buildup of carbon in our atmosphere. That carbon traps heat, causing overall global temperatures to rise on average. That's a bad thing. If this continues unabated and we don't come up with a way to try and reduce the amount of carbon emissions or reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere somehow, then we're going to have a really bad time. And when I say really bad time, I'm talking about potential extinction level event. It's not good. So when we talk about things like wind and solar, and I'd also include things like hydroelectric and thermal power and nuclear power, like these things are not just better for the environment, but are necessary for humans to survive moving forward. Like, I understand that some of these ways of getting power are imperfect, but so is coal and other fossil fuels. You get that, right? Not only are those things like fossil fuels, non-renewable resources that we're going to run out of eventually. Again, it's this like obsession with endless expansion without any checks. It's impossible. There's only a limited amount of this stuff around. And we're even to the point where in the United States we're down to doing stuff like fracking, which has made us able to get to resources we were not able to get to in the past, but it's also led to environmental downfalls where we see poisoning of water supplies in areas where that happens. So we need to, this isn't even about want. Like, I agree that I want renewable energy sources because they're better for the environment, but it's not even about the want. It's about need. We need to change over to those and figure out new ways of getting power in a renewable, clean way, or we will all die. Period. This isn't about, like, and I'm sure they're going to say, like, well, what if it's not windy? Or what about the recent wildfires where there was a bunch of ash in the air and there was no sun for you to be able to get solar power? Well, for right now, that's why it would be great to switch to a system where we have solar and wind when we can use it, but in cases where we don't have wind, or if there's an emergency like the wildfires, then you can use fossil fuels when necessary until we can get to such a time where we have ways of producing energy reliably all the time, around the clock, in a variety of situations, right? That doesn't make these things bad. It means that they're things we need to continue to work on while we wean ourselves off of our reliance on fossil fuels, which are literally killing us. The Distant Red with a bit, wait, what does his metaphor even mean? I don't know.
They think all the energy we need can be supplied by building enough wind and solar farms.
Theoretically, it could, yeah. You could do that. It would require a lot. We need to continue to work on the efficiency rate of solar panels, but at this point they're the highest they've ever been. They'll continue to improve most likely, and wind farms are a cool thing. Like, I don't understand this right-wing aversion to clean forms of energy. It makes no sense. This is the free market at work. Like, literally, this is innovation being born of necessity. Ideally, if you were someone who was like a hyper-capitalist, I am not, but if you're someone like that, which PragerU tends to act like, you'd think they'd be like, wow, necessity and capitalism are breeding innovation yet again. Look at all these brand new ways of getting energy just from the sun and the air that we weren't able to get before. Like, this should be right-wingers, like, point of attack. Like, look at what capitalism has done. We're literally able to squeeze energy out of the rays of the sun and the wind. But instead, because so many of the mouthpieces for the right are in the pockets of fossil fuel industries, they feel the need to demonize this stuff, despite the fact that, again, it's amazing innovations at work. Very strange.
And enough batteries. The simple truth is that we can't. Nor should we want to. Not if our goal is to be good stewards.
People who are advocates of these newfangled motor cars want us to believe that they will one day overtake the use of horse and buggy, but really, they're unreliable, they break down, and frankly, they don't go as fast or as reliably as a horse and carriage, so why even bother putting money into the development of these automobiles? This guy sounds like an idiot, is what I'm saying.
Of the planet. To understand why, consider some simple physics realities that aren't being talked about.
Oh boy, PragerU on physics. PragerU, the people who think the Big Bang didn't happen and that all life on Earth magically popped into existence 6,000 years ago. This should be good.
All sources of energy have limits that can't be exceeded.
Yes. Yes, they do, I guess, if we're talking about theoretical limits. Like, if we're talking about, like, oil or coal, there's a finite amount of energy that can be extracted from it, typically by burning it. That's usually how fossil fuels work. You burn whatever the thing is, whether it's coal or whether it's, like, natural gas or whether it's oil, and then using the energy that has come out of that chemical reaction of the burning, you then move a turbine or something to create electricity. Or if it's something like a car, then you just use that explosion to move pistons, which move the axles, which move your car forward or backward, depending on what your gear you're in, but you get what I'm saying. But what does this have to do with anything? Like, this applies equally to every form of energy. All forms of energy are going to have different limits. For instance, fossil fuel limits. If we continue using them at the rate we are, we will all die. That's a limit.
The maximum rate at which the sun's photons can be converted to electrons is about 33%.
Yeah, and it's improved immensely over the last 2 decades and will continue to do so. Nonetheless, just because we only get 33% of the sun's rays energy that hit a solar panel, you know what the answer to that is? Build more solar panels. It's not like you're like, we built the one solar panel, boss. It's not enough energy. What do we do? I don't know. That we can only build one solar panel at a time. We should have thought this through. No, that's why you have solar farms, where you have tons of solar panels that collect sun energy, and they're all next to each other so they can easily be cleaned and maintained, and that power is transferred elsewhere, either for storage or to be taken to people's homes. Like, what don't you get about this? It's the same thing. It would be like saying, oh, we can only get X amount of energy out of this lump of coal, so what's the point? This one lump of coal won't power my house at all. But yeah, that's why you get a lot of coal, and then you burn it at a facility somewhere. They generate power there at the power plant, and then that power gets either stored there or taken to people's houses to power things. That's always how any sort of electricity is worked in the world. I guess I don't understand what they think they're trying to get across here.
Our best solar technology is at 26% efficiency. For wind, the maximum capture is 60%.
That's pretty good.
Our best machines are at 45%. So we're pretty close to wind and solar limits.
Cool.
Despite PR...
I don't even know if that is an actual limit, by the way. That's just what Prager is saying. Saying that we can get at max 33% of the energy from the sun's rays. I have no idea if that's a hard limit. I don't. Definitely look that up and don't just believe Prager because they lie constantly.
Claims about big gains coming, there just aren't any possible.
The best solar is like 80% with new tech? I don't know. Guess do research. I don't tend to believe Prager so...
And wind and solar only work when the wind blows and the sun shines, but...
Yes, which is why what you do, and when we're talking about building green grids, what you do is you have a lot of solar panels and you have a lot of wind turbines and like wind farms and stuff, and then you store excess energy in batteries or some other things. There are ways you can store energy outside of batteries, like dams and other things like that, because that can be used as energy storage. Basically, when you have an excess of energy, you pump water up into an area in a dam using that electricity, and then when you need to release that power, you then let the water flow down using gravity, and then that spins a turbine, which produces electricity. It's a way of storing potential energy, basically, but there are multiple ways of doing this. This isn't out of the question. This is like... This happens. This happens all the time. Energy storage is a problem that needs to be tackled in terms of green grids, but that doesn't mean it's something that shouldn't or won't be solved. Again, these people are super capitalist advocates. They, of all people, should be saying, well, this technology is necessary, and necessity breeds innovation, so we'll develop all sorts of new battery technologies and ways of storing energy that will not only help us in terms of these green new grids, but will be then available for things like personal electronics and electric vehicles. Like, these are things that if they were internally consistent, they would be saying, but they're not because they have donors from the fossil fuel industry. I wish it weren't that simple, but it is. These people are just shills, so...
We need energy all the time. The solution, we're told, is to use batteries. Again...
Batteries aren't the only way. For one thing, they're developing new battery technologies all the time. As much as I don't like Elon Musk, Tesla does put a lot of R&D into battery technology because, of course, for electric vehicles, that sort of thing, and higher capacity batteries that can be charged quickly are very important. Not only is Tesla working on this, but of course, the major automotive industries are all working on their own electric vehicles. Consumer electronics companies like Apple, like Samsung, all of them are working with companies to develop new battery technologies for consumer electronics. These are things that are just working all the time. But again, batteries aren't the only way. My example was like a dam. You can use, again, the electricity that you have excess of to pump things up, store its potential energy, release it, and then the gravity of the water and flowing through a turbine can release that energy. There are all sorts of different ways. I'm not an engineer. I'm not in anything. But what I'm saying is, a layman like me can explain this, meaning that these people are not so stupid as to not be able to grasp these things. They're being intentionally obtuse as to push a narrative that's being fed to them by their donors. And it's very, very obnoxious, considering the end result of doing what these people are saying is the extinction of the human race.
Physics and chemistry make this very hard to do. Consider the world's biggest battery factory, the one Tesla built in Nevada. It would take 500 years for that factory to make enough batteries to store just 1 day's worth of America's electricity needs.
Yeah, those are batteries built for cars. First of all, if we're going to talk about, like, factory capability, we really shouldn't be comparing Tesla's factories, because Tesla does not output that many cars compared to the other large automotive firms. If we're in an emergency situation and we actually moved on climate change like we should be, then GM, Ford, whatever, could pump out way more of this stuff way more efficiently. Tesla's just a pretty bad company when it comes to manufacturing things quickly and with high quality control, so that's a bad example. But again, that has to do with my feelings on Tesla, so.
This helps explain why wind and solar currently still supply less than 3% of the world's energy.
Correct. Which is why they need to continue to expand, and because people like you continually put roadblocks up. I go back to my argument of, well, these new-fangled automatic carriages, they're so inefficient and they don't work as reliably as my horse, so why should we put time and energy into working on these automacars? This is what this person sounds like in 30 or 40 years. You can't just say the current development of a certain technology that's vital to the continued existence of the human race. You can't say, because right now it is not the dominant force, it should not be worked on at all. If that were the case, then literally no innovations would ever happen.
After 20 years and billions of dollars in subsidies, putting aside the...
Do we want to talk about fossil fuel subsidies? Because those have been going much longer and amount to much more of the federal budget, if we want to have that discussion. But I'm guessing you don't want to have that discussion because in the corner of the room, you have a guy from, like, BP or Shell Oil with a check. And every time you say something they don't like, they knock a zero off of the thing.
Economics, if your motive is to protect the environment, you might want to rethink wind, solar, and batteries because, like all machines, they're built from non-renewable materials. Consider some solar...
And that's something that needs to be worked on. I agree. Materials science is something that continually improves every day, and we need to figure out ways to develop not only renewable energy sources, but sources that are made of materials that they themselves are renewable. I agree. But nonetheless, the fact is we still need to work on all these energy solutions in tandem with each other, right? Like a materials scientist isn't all of a sudden going to stop and be like, well, I could work on this materials science, but instead, I'm going to go work on developing efficiency in solar panels. Like, there might be some crossover there in terms of materials being able to be more effective at absorbing sunlight. What I'm talking about is the fact that people are working all the time and putting their entire lives' work into improving these things in all facets when it comes to actually engineering the devices like solar panels or wind turbines to make them more efficient, while at the same time, other people in their own fields are working on ways to develop these systems with materials that are renewable, right? These are all things that are being worked on in tandem. And again, taking a snapshot of right now and saying, well, things haven't progressed as much as I think they should. And of course, they're not being, honest or genuine in their argumentation anyway. But let's imagine they are for a second. It's ridiculous to say, I don't like where this thing is right now, therefore we shouldn't even try to improve it. It's stupid. It's like a Luddite opinion. It makes no sense.
Sobering numbers. A single electric car battery weighs about half a ton. Fabricating one requires digging up, moving, and processing more than 250 tons of earth somewhere on the planet. Building a single 100-megawatt wind farm can power 75,000 homes requires some 30,000 tons of iron ore and 50,000 tons of concrete, as well as...
Because no resources go into mining or using fossil fuels. You understand that internal combustion engine cars still use materials, right? And the plants where they go and they burn fossil fuels also use resources to be built. Oh, you do? You just don't want to talk about that because you're being disingenuous? Cool.
900 tons of non-recyclable plastics for the huge blades. To get the same power from solar, the amount of cement, steel, and glass needed is 150% greater. Then there's the other minerals needed, including elements known as rare earth metals. With current plans, the world will need an incredible 200 to 2,000% increase in mining for elements such as cobalt, lithium, and dysprosium.
Yeah, again, material science is working on this. And not only that, but there are people who are developing batteries that don't use, like, the lithium component, like current generation lithium-ion batteries. There have been breakthroughs. I think someone mentioned something about, like, a solid-state battery, but I don't know enough about that to say whether it's bullshit or not. But, like, people are working on battery technologies. Lithium-ion batteries themselves aren't that old. They've only been used in, like, cell phones and stuff for the past decade or so. Prior to that, they used very, very different batteries, which is why... cell phones today, if they were powered by batteries as they existed in, like, the 90s, they would probably last, like, an hour. But nowadays, because we have pretty complicated lithium-ion batteries, we're able to do relatively good things with them in terms of longevity. Anyway, so lithium-ion batteries, yeah, developed sometime in the 80s, but they didn't become a big part of consumer electronics until much more recently because it was expensive to make them, and the... ratio of, like, risk-reward was not as good at the time. Because you see things like, what are they called? The hoverboards exploding, or when Samsung put out that phone that's exploding. As you have battery technologies, at least as we have them now, and their storage potential gets higher and higher, when they fail catastrophically and they don't fail safe, you get a bigger and bigger boom. Anyway... That's why people talking about, like, solid-state batteries and stuff, they're talking about it because it would not only be a way to make things with fewer, like, minerals like this that require mining, especially in, like, third-world countries or undeveloped economies that often get taken advantage of in situations like this, but it also becomes safer as a consumer electronic device, or if you're talking about using them for energy storage in large facilities.
To name just a few. Where is all this stuff going to come from? Massive new mining operations. Almost none of it in America.
I'm fine with mines, but not okay if they're not in America.
Some imported from places hostile to America, and some...
Again, which is why materials science is important.
Places we all want...
And if you're really going to be out there and be like Elon Musk talks about, like, oh, we're going to mine asteroids. I believe that if we continue to exist, yes, at some point human beings will probably mine asteroids, but I think it's far enough away that it's not something we should consider a given anytime soon. Oboan with 100 bits. One of the more promising new battery types is a dual carbon graphene battery. Other possibilities is a solid hydrogen battery. Once we can get the process to make metallic hydrogen to be more efficient. I understood some of those words.
Want to protect. Australia's Institute for Sustainable Futures cautions that a global gold rush for...
And again, need I mention yet again that none of this matters considering the alternative is using fossil fuels that are currently killing us. Okay, just thought we'd all be on the same page.
For energy materials will take miners into remote wilderness areas that have maintained high biodiversity because they haven't yet been disturbed. And who's doing the mining? Well, let's just say that they're not all going to be union workers with union protections.
Oh, Prager, you all of a sudden cares about unions. Sure.
Amnesty International paints a disturbing picture. The marketing of state-of-the-art technologies are a stark contrast to the children carrying bags of rocks.
We can agree that the the environment and the conditions of workers in these places is bad, while also recognizing that we shouldn't not develop those technologies specifically because of the worker conditions. The solution is to fix the worker conditions. You get that, right? Not to just be like, well, no one's ever been exploited by the fossil fuel industry. Don't know about that one.
And then the mining itself requires massive amounts of conventional energy, as do the energy.
Currently, but ideally, again, the point would be in the future, these mining equipments would also be powered by some sort of electric that's much more efficient than it would be today, an electric vehicle, and then that electricity would be gotten through some green means. Again, I understand that right now we're not at that place, but the only way to get us there currently is to use the non-green technology to sort of bootstrap us up to green technologies. We already have non-green technologies, and now we're engineering green technologies, and in order to do so, we need to use current technology. I don't think that's a crazy explanation. I think everyone understands that.
Energy-intensive industrial processes needed to refine the materials and then build the wind, solar, battery hardware. Then there's the waste. Wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries have a relatively short life, about 20 years.
Are we really going to talk about waste? But you're going to be like, hey, by the way, let's use fossil fuels instead, which are, by the way, very clean.
Conventional energy machines like gas turbines last twice as long.
And the entire time, they're churning out carbon into the atmosphere, which, again, is inevitably going to kill us if we don't stop.
Current plans, the International Renewable Energy Agency calculates that by 2050, the disposal of worn-out solar panels will constitute over double the tonnage of all of today's global plastic waste.
Doubt.
Worn-out wind turbines and batteries will add millions of tons more waste. It'll be a whole new environmental challenge.
Yep. Human beings need to face problems, and often when we solve one problem, we have a whole new set of problems to deal with. But you know what won't solve the problems? Or I guess it would if you really, really want to. If we're all dead due to the fact that climate change has killed us all, then all the problems stop and we can just stop trying to solve them. Until such a time, though, I'd prefer we work on making a world that doesn't kill us. That'd be good.
Before we launch history's biggest increase in mining, dig up millions of acres in pristine areas, encourage childhood labor.
Bud, again, you can fight to stop child labor in other countries while also advocating for green technologies. These things are not mutually exclusive.
And create epic waste problems. We might want to reconsider our almost inexhaustible supply of hydrocarbons.
Oh, God.
The fuels that make our marvelous modern world possible.
They are literally going to kill us.
And technology is making it easier to acquire and cleaner to use them every day.
They are finite. Period. They're finite. Whether they run out today, tomorrow, or 150, 200, 1,000 years from now, they will run out and you have to deal with that one way or another, so why not start to deal with the problem now? Secondly, we're not going to get to 1,000 years from now if we keep using them at a current rate because it's going to kill not only us, but everything on the planet. Like, why do you think that's an option? This is literally only an option if you don't believe what scientists say. And if you don't believe what scientists say, then why did you literally say any of the things you said in this video that were clearly trying to be based on science? Like, oh, there's going to be waste issues, and there's going to be this, and that, and it's only 33% efficient. Oh, the same scientists who say, you know, talk about the efficiencies of solar panels, they're also saying that carbon in the atmosphere is going to kill us all. You can't take one and use it as evidence that you think green technologies are bad and then ignore the other. You have to accept both.
The following comparisons are typical and instructive. It costs about the same to drill one oil well as it does to build one giant wind turbine. And while that turbine generates the energy equivalent of about 1 barrel of oil per hour, the oil rig produces 10 barrels per hour.
Yet, the wind turbine will not produce carbon that will kill us. This one's really efficient, but it'll kill us. But isn't it cool? This one, super lame. It doesn't even kill us and only produces 1 barrel per hour. Don't you want to be a cool kid and come with me and come get killed? Woo!
Costs less than 50 cents to store a barrel of oil or its equivalent in natural gas, but you need $200 worth of batteries to hold the energy contained in 1 oil barrel.
Again, which is why batteries and material technologies continue to be worked on. Congrats!
Next time someone tells you that wind, solar, and batteries are the magical solution for all our energy needs, ask them if...
No one says they're magical. They're scientific and engineering marvels that we're going to use to try and stop us from dying. And we're already past the point, by the way, where no one's gonna die. People have already died because of climate change. At this point, all we're trying to do is mitigate the damage. The car is already crashing. At this point, we're trying to make sure the airbags detonate. But people like Prager and the people who write checks to them are trying to punch holes in the airbags so they don't even go off, and trying to remove all of our seat belts. These people are going to get us all killed, and it's not funny at all. Logarth laughs in Petrochemist. Yeah, now factor in the extra $1 billion of infrastructure to refine that oil and distribute it. Yup. But don't you know, one barrel of oil is just oil. It's just energy already. Don't you know that?
If they have an idea of the cost to the environment. Unobtainium works fine in the movies, but we don't live in the movies. We live in the real world. I'm Mark Mills, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Prager University.
What an asshole. Like, do you think he goes home at night and realizes, like, I'm getting a lot of people killed, but boy, do I like that money. Like, is that where his head's at? I don't know. Anyway. What's this? This was sent as a cleanse. What's this?
Dungeons & Dragons story comes from an Adventures League game when I ran Tomb of Annihilation from an encounter involving a seemingly inconspicuous obelisk. My Adventures League group is about 60 people, 9 of which are GMs, which get broken down into tables with 6 or 7 players.
Logarth with 10... Oh, no, sorry. Logarth with 1 bit. Listen up his argument with a good old-fashioned straw man. Perfect. That was a little hard to read.
The groups are synchronized, so they run through the same encounter session to session. That way, after the game is over, they can all complain about the same stuff they ran into. The Tomb of Annihilation module takes place in the continent of Chud, with the characters running around doing various missions. The actual tomb in the name doesn't come until the end, and its full name is the Tomb of the Nine Gods. It was built by a necromancer that traveled through the multiverse, a Sirak, who had managed to hunt down and murder the 9 gods of old, and entomb them there. Before most games, we have a GM meeting where we sit down and talk about the upcoming session in order to make sure we're all on the same page. This night was important because the players had actually managed to arrive at the tomb. We were talking about how to try and sell the dungeon as a real and dangerous place.
Yeah, the tomb's really deadly. There's a lot of instant death traps and some pretty high-end encounters are statted out. I mean, did you guys see what's in that obelisk?
What he was referring to was we were given a sheet, which was a summary of the various encounters and their XP cost. And on the sheet, there was one encounter labeled the Obelisk Encounter. In our campaign notes was an asterisk saying, "Warning! Do not run this encounter unless your party specifically knocks over the obelisk. If they do, they're just asking to die quickly and hideously." The obelisk they're referring to is just outside the Tomb of the 9 Gods. There's this empty courtyard there, with short grass and some ruins. The area's pretty boring. There's not a whole lot to find. Sitting in the center is this nondescript obelisk with a plaque on it. What's supposed to happen is...
MMO addicted. Oil is sustenance. We, the Taikuts, have transcended humanity. In this time, the most precious substance in the universe is the oil. The oil extends life. The oil expands consciousness. The oil is vital to space travel. They who control the oil controls the universe. Is this a Dune reference? Is this the spice must flow thing? I vaguely know of Dune through cultural osmosis, but I've never read it.
Is that the players go past the obelisk, see that there's some writing, they read it, and just keep walking. However, it says that if the players push the obelisk over, it would trigger a separate encounter. We're not supposed to be running it, the head GM explained. I mean, in order for the players to encounter that thing, they will first have to cast Identify on the obelisk, which, I mean, let's be perfectly honest, why would they? And then they would have to decide, oh, hey, let's break this rock. And
Kathy7407, Hannah, do you believe if someone wanted a close friendship or possibly more with someone who happened to be above their economic class, that they'd ever be able to get past being intimidated by it? Oh, I'm sure, yeah. People get in relationships all the time that they're not necessarily from the same, like, social circle or social class, whatever that means in your cultural context. That happens all the time.
And then try and knock it over. Let's be real, that's probably not gonna happen. And we all start laughing. It's a joke.
Never say that. Never say that as a DM. I love D&D. This hat is my D&D character's hat. You've probably seen it in the channel art with the elf lady with the hat. This is the hat. Anyway, in my D&D experience, I haven't DM'd a ton, although I plan to do so more in the future. I'm in the middle of a campaign, but we kind of put it on hold because of COVID, so it's been so long. It's almost been a year since we got to play it, which is a shame. But anyway, never assume what the players are gonna do. You can't. You gotta be quick on your feet. You gotta be able to make up entirely new characters immediately because they're gonna decide to do something that you didn't plan on. Like, you gotta be able to figure out locations. Like, literally, one time, and I have, like, a homebrewed setting and everything for my campaign, and they asked a question which I should have known the answer to specifically, but I didn't because it's not really core to the setting. It's like a steampunk, arcano-punk setting where there's, like, technology, but also magic, and a lot of it's like a modern city. It's sort of like an arcana-punk dystopian city. And someone asked something along the lines of, like, is there a specific religion in the city? Because they wanted to get into someone's apartment, and they were going to do so under the auspices of pretending to be, like, a door knocker religious person. So they're like, is there, like, a religious organization in the city? I didn't assume there would be going in, because it's like a secular society. But I was like, this is kind of a fun idea. So yes, there is a church. So I made up a religion on the spot, and now that's just a thing in the setting. So, like, you gotta think on your feet.
There's nothing funny
and the joke almost with that religion was, like, it's vague, because that I had to come up with that on the spot. They're the Church of Life, and they believe in it's a lot of platitudes. It's a lot of, like, we believe in good and not bad, and we believe that being good is better than being bad. And that's funny, but, like, it's also based on the fact that I made it up on the spot, and I think it's funnier for it to be vague. Baha says, hey, Hannah in chat, Hannah, I emailed you a surprise. Go take a look, but don't accidentally dox me. Okay, hold on, I'll continue playing the video, but I'm going to turn the screen off so I can check my email. There we go.
Jokes are funny. I like jokes.
Yeah, but what if they do, though?
If they do, you have my permission to murder your entire table's characters.
Hey.
Don't hold back, because at that point they're just
New
asking
emo.
to die. The head GM gave a disclaimer to the players before the game started. We are in the Tomb of the Nine Gods now, a Syrax dungeon. It's do or die. The GMs have been asked to print out extra character sheets and bring them to the games so that if you die, you can just get a new one. There are some things in this dungeon that can instantly kill you. This is your warning. You're on your own now. Your fates are in your own hands.
So we begin play. All the tables are going through the same area.
and everything seems to be going fine. They're trying to solve a puzzle door. They read
There
the
we
plaque
go.
on the
The
obelisk.
emote's under
They
review.
walk through the
Hopefully it'll be
courtyard
live
and proceed
soon.
on to the next section. Then it comes to my table. They solve the puzzle door and are on to the next section and start heading off to the dungeon. And then, for God knows what reason, the halfling bard decides to double back around to the courtyard and says, "You know, I'm going to cast Identify on that obelisk." "Sure," I say, and I tell the halfling that as he stares at the stone for a while, he's suddenly taken aback. It almost seemed like there was something in the stone staring back at him, something watching him, something with powerful magical energy, and that there is an entity trapped within this stonework, and I can see a flash of eyes there for a second, and he has to make a save against being frightened. Then our cleric goes, "I take a swing at the obelisk with my warhammer," and he rolls a crit. So I describe how it's like when Gimli strikes the One Ring of Power with his axe, blasting him backwards and knocking him to the ground. It appears like there is some kind of magical aura that prevents you from destroying it. Then I hear the other player at my table say, "Yeah, let's knock this obelisk over. We're gonna take it down." In real life, the player shouted this out, and his voice carried over to the other tables. Several other groups heard what he said, and I get looks from the GMs at the other games, from across the room, because they all know what's up. One of the DMs starts waving to me, mouthing, "Goodbye," because he knows I'm not going to have a table in a few seconds. Another one whispers to me, "Just do thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs up, they did it. Thumbs down, they didn't." I inform the players that in order to knock over this obelisk, it takes players collectively pushing on it with a total strength score of 60 between them. So you would need 3 characters with strength 20 or 5 with 12. So the group teams up, and together they all work to knock the obelisk over. Well, I guess everyone's dead now. At that, there's a loud crack as the rock shatters when it hits the ground. Clouds go dark, lightning rumbles in the distance. These strange black vapors issue out of the rubble, swirling around them with this mad cackling. The halfling goes, "Oh, ooh. We probably shouldn't have done that, should we?" The DM at the other table is saying quietly, "Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up." I look to the other DM, I just give a thumbs up, and he starts cackling. What you have to understand is that a Sirak has traveled around the multiverse and collected various specimens and things. And there was one he found in the abyss, which he's like, "You're coming home with me," and sealed in an obelisk. Wasn't the best place to keep it in my mind. The strange vapors coalesce into a hulking creature, and I inform the players what was inside of that obelisk was a goddamn Nalfishnay. Standing before them is this big pig-like creature, 20 feet tall.
Nalfishnay. Nalfishnay. Let me look at the stats on this thing. Magical resistance, advantage on saving throws against spell saves and other effects. It has multi-attack, makes 3 attacks, 1 with its bite, 2 with its claws. Melee weapon attack plus 10 to hit, reach 5 feet.
There's nothing funny about
30
the capitalism.
5d10 plus 5 piercing. The claws do 3d6 plus 5 slashing. Horror Nimbus. The Nalfasheen magically emits a scintillating multicolored light. Each creature within 15 feet of the Nalfashee that can see the light must succeed on a DC 15 wisdom save or be frightened for 1 minute. A creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. If a creature's saving throw is successful or the effect ends for it, the creature is immune to the Nalfashee's Horror Nimbus for the next 24 hours. Teleport. The Nalfashnee magically teleports along with any equipment it is wearing or carrying up to 120 feet. Wow, that's a lot. Dr. Gamble, your sword says, "I warned you." Ooh, 8. Okay, so its AC is 18. For a non-D&D person, your AC is the... When you're going to hit a creature, you roll your D20, which I have some of somewhere, but I'm not going to get up to get them. It's, you know, you've seen a 20-sided die before. You need to roll a number plus your attack modifier that is higher than a creature or person's AC in order to hit them successfully, and then you do damage dice. 184 hit points on average. Speed 20, fly 30. Damage, resistance, cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. So basically, you need to hit it with magic for your damage to do its full damage. It's immune to poison, both the condition and the damage. It has 120 feet of true sight. Oh no. True sight means you can see through illusions. So like a wizard who relies on illusion spells is no help. Telepathy, 120 feet. Is a challenge level of 13. Okay. Like, I guess it depends upon the level of your party when you hit this thing. I feel like our party, which is level 17, we've been playing this campaign for probably almost 3 years now. We could deal with this, but like if you're a lower level party, yeah, this thing's gonna mess you up.
Or so, with these stubbly black wings and tusks. He kind of looks like the monster form of Ganon from The Legend of Zelda.
You all look so delicious. I wonder which one I should be eating first.
Maybe it was tougher in another edition. This is Tomb of Annihilation, though, which is Tomb of Annihilation, which is a 5e, I think. I think that's a 5e campaign. Yeah, it's a module for 5th edition, so that should be the up-to-date stats, unless this is like a special one that has higher stats or something. I don't know.
What the?
But also, that would, I should clarify. That would be like an end of dungeon boss, right? Because in D&D, you're always dealing with like your resources, right? Like if this was the boss at the end of the dungeon, that's fine. You can deal with that. This being at the beginning of a dungeon, you're screwed. You're done. Because you're going to go through all your spell slots if you're a wizard. You're going to take tons of damage if you're a fighter. Like, that's what screws this up. This is now a boss at the beginning, and I've never played Tomb of Annihilation, but as far as I know, it's full of monsters and full of traps and stuff. So this is already depleting your resources at the beginning. So even if they survive this fight, they're done. There's no way they're getting through the rest of the dungeon. It would be like fighting a boss that was balanced to only fight one boss at the beginning and then going through an entire level and then fighting a second boss that's, again, only balanced assuming you're going to fight the one boss, like all on the same health bar. Does that make sense? I'm trying to do a video game analogy. So They screwed themselves up here.
The hell is this guy? Congratulations! You guys just summoned a Type 4 demon from the abyss! He's a pig demon. Let's boogie. The barbarian goes first and he swings his great axe at the Nalfishneh. The demon blocks the blade with its bare hand and casually knocks it aside like the thing's just a toy.
Your mortal weapons are no match for me.
And I let the players know that this creature has high armor class and resistance to non-magical weapons. Then the wizard casts a spell that just ricochets off the Nalfishneh's flabby belly.
It's interesting that he just told them out. I mean, every DM is going to be different, but he just told them it has resistance to non-magical weapons. That's interesting. That's normally something, at least in the campaigns I've been a part of, you just have to figure out by trial and error, because that's how it works in the universe of the game. Like, you need to try something on it before you realize it's has a resistance to something.
That tickled.
I let the players know it also has resistance to magic as well. All magic. There is nothing that this group has that can get a solid hit on this guy. Wait, so this guy has magic resistance and resistance to physical damage?
MMO Addicted with 10 bits. I think he meant that the Nalfishneh saying their weapon won't work was telling that to them. Okay, fair enough.
That doesn't sound fair. You're right. It's not.
About the tools of capitalism.
Dude spanking dudes with a bit. Maybe he told them since he knew that they were already effed? Maybe.
While the other tables are just casually walking through the courtyard, my table is having this epic fight to the death with this Type 4 demon, which is teleporting around taking swipes at them. And with all this build-up, The fight itself was actually kind of boring. The Nalfashneh, when it gets summoned, is only there for a finite number of rounds, so the players just had to wait it out. With 7 high-level characters, the group can actually soak a lot of damage and have access to several healing spells and potions.
50 HP times 7. They're not... I mean, if their HP is only 50 each, they gotta be, like, level 10 or something. Like, my character, who's a wizard, and wizards have really low HP, is still in like, the 80s at this point, I think, so...
So the demon didn't...
And we're level 17.
...actually have enough damage output to kill them, and they didn't have enough damage output to kill the demon, so it was just a war of attrition, before finally the thing had to return to the abyss. Eventually the demon leaves, saying,
"You're too much trouble than you're worth. I'll make sure to come back with friends, and I'll get your heads next time."
What's your name?
Skellick? Drogar? Bylus? Something with a Z, maybe. Zulkin? Zulkin. That's it.
See, maybe this is just the kind of I like the funny D&D stuff, so I would have been like, Greg. The demon's name is Greg. Yeah, that's probably an overused joke that demon has stupid human name, but I don't know. I'm easy to please. I think that's funny.
The demon's name, right? We'll go with that. Zulkin will be coming for you.
Once the fight was over, the players asked me,
in fairness, I guess this is an Adventure League game. So for them, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 10 is probably high level. I've never played Adventure League, and I never would, just because that sounds awful to me. Like, too stringent. That's not why I'm playing D&D. I don't feel the need to, like, have that strict of rules applied to me.
"Do we get any experience points?" "No." Are there any magical items in the obelisk that was protecting?
There's nothing.
No.
MMO addicted with 10 bits. A running gag of me is that every session there's at least one NPC named Bob or Bobbert or another version of Bob. That's funny. I like that kind of stuff in D&D. I like D&D that, like, for me, D&D, it should have a good balance, and this is just my personal opinion. Everyone's gonna have all sorts of different opinions. A good balance of genuine, like, character moments, but also, like, silly, stupid stuff like that. I think that's fun to have little inside jokes with you and the group that you play with.
What just happened? In the book, it says the Nalfashneh shows up, fights, and then vanishes. You guys get nothing from it. After they encountered that thing, they were a little on edge for the rest of the dungeon. That was probably one of the strangest fights I've ever had to run. Maybe it wasn't the most well-designed encounter, but I thought it was kind of funny. Besides, it's kind of why I play D&D, is to encounter the strange and unexpected.
I'm subscribing to that channel. That's great. Little animated D&D stories, I'm on board. Alright, time to get back to the Chuds. What shall we watch? What? Tate. What do you have for us, Tate? Doon 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 doon. Ba 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 bum ba bum ba bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Tate on friends are your biggest weakness. Oh God. Here's Tate, who's gonna try and be like super awesome. I'm awesome because I have no attachments. Nah, bro. That sounds awful. What's that channel called? The one that I just... hold on. Control, Shift, T.
This Dungeons & Dragons...
Puffin Forest. Here's a link to that D&D video if you wanted to check out the channel.
There's nothing funny about the tools
Link
of
in chat.
capitalism.
MMO addicted with 10 bits. Also, one of our D&D adventuring parties established an interdimensional vampire-run blood bank, which often appears as a neutral quest giver. That's fun. That's a good idea. That's cute. That's actually kind of a cool idea. Ooh, I might steal that. Like the idea... Ooh, I like this. The idea that there's maybe in the city that I have for my D&D campaign, maybe there's like a group of vampires that are considered like good vampires, or at least neutral vampires, that are open and say like, hey, I'm a vampire, but I don't want to hurt people. Will you please come and donate to this blood bank so we can get blood? And they do so, and some people are like for it, and some people are like against it, like there's people outside picketing. Okay. I'm gonna steal that idea. Consider it stolen. Freaking out 99 with a bit. Last D&D session, everybody else succumbed to their wounds except me. I'm the bard. The Distant Red says, after a half of a year campaign, we found out that our big bads who owned pie companies are named VAM. They're vampires. We left the continent, so we no longer have to deal with that. Vampires. Nice. Okay, but if you steal it from me, their leader has to be named Victoria Bathory. She was the founder, who was a countess who swore to protect all of her kin forever. Victoria Bathory. Hold on, let me copy paste that so I remember. I'll write it down in my D&D like thing. Control C. Control V. Vampire Blood Bank founder. I'll remember to put that in a Word document when I'm done streaming. Anyway, back to Tate. Here's Tate. The title of this video is The Worst Type of Friends to Have If You Want to Be Successful.
Your friends are your biggest weakness. Most people talk about the people around them as if it's their strength. Oh, this person, when I feel down, I go to this person, I go to that person, this person makes me feel better, blah, blah, fucking blah. The reality is the people you hold close to you are your biggest weakness because they're the only ones who have the ability to betray you.
I shed all my emotional bonds because all the people around you can do is hurt you. Tate, do you think this makes you sound badass? It just makes you sound like a weird, paranoid Bond villain. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, being vulnerable to the people that you care about can be scary, but that's part of life. That's part of being a human being, and you need to understand that you should do that to be a healthy individual. Great start, Tate. I agree, Dr. Gamble. Great start.
The reality is, if you want to become a somebody on this planet, if you're going to do things worthwhile, sooner or later you're going to make enemies.
Tate, you've never done anything worthwhile. All you've ever done is kick people in the head because you were a kickboxer and shill ridiculous programs to men who are insecure in order to get them to give you money. And you also run a cam girl service, which is fine, but frankly, those women should be going out on their own. They don't need you as some kind of weird digital pimp. They should be getting their own money and not paying you a cut because you don't deserve one. Weepy little sheepy with 10 bits. Tate, trust nobody, not even yourself. Do you guys know that? That's where Tate makes a lot of his money. He has like a warehouse where he has women come and do cam girl stuff and be employees for him. It's ridiculous. And again, I think sex work is fine. I have absolutely no problem with it. What I have a problem with is Tate taking advantage of people and taking a cut of what should be their income for something that they could be doing on their own and getting a bigger cut because it could be their own business. I don't even understand what Tate's supposed role in this cam girl like business that he has even is. Like, anyone can make an OnlyFans account. Does he just handle marketing? Like, that's no matter what they're paying him, it's not worth it.
But enemies are not actually too big a problem. I have had some extreme enemies. I've had 2 attempts on my life. But
Doubt.
most people are not going to build enemies this extreme. You're going to build enemies of people who don't like you or they hate you. That's fine, because you can deal with that very easily by basically ignoring them. And you also know exactly what to expect from an enemy. An enemy's going to attack you, and you know how to deal with that. A friend, on the other hand, can betray you. Betrayal is much worse than an attack from an enemy for two reasons. One, it catches you by surprise. That's the first thing. And the second thing is your friend knows you well enough to know your weaknesses and knows exactly how to strike.
Tate, saying that you shouldn't have friends because one might betray you is like saying you shouldn't drive cars because one might crash. Like, okay, but you still enjoy driving a car, you in particular, Tate, which is why I'm picking that as the metaphor. You buy a lot of expensive cars, or rent them, or whatever you do, and you seem to enjoy driving them. There are inherent risks to any sort of interpersonal relationship, sure, but that's a really weird way of looking at the relationships you have with other people. Like, when you have friends or significant others or whatever it happens to be, family even, like, there are always going to be ways in which those people can hurt you that strangers could not. I agree, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have those relationships because the benefits always outweigh the risks. Freaking out 99, Tate needs to stop being James Bond and Batman. Trying to be, yeah. And then the distant red, don't trust your friends or family. They'll only distract you from the truth I'm leading you to. Not a cult leader.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Logarth with 10 bits. Tate, the Chernobyl of toxic masculinity. That's a good way to put it.
Have you ever watched two girls fall out? And girls are the worst for this, because girls have less loyalty than men.
You gotta get the little sexist remarks in there. Of course you do.
Watch two women fall out. The pretty one.
Oh, the milk chuds emote unlocked. So there you go. That's a thing. If you subscribe, you get the milk chuds emote. Among others.
We'll start telling the ugly one she's ugly for the first time ever. Up until that argument, the pretty one's like, no, you're beautiful too, babe. We'll go out together. I can't believe he liked me and not you. That's weird. You're gorgeous. You're gorgeous. The second they start having an argument, she's like, yeah, well, you're fucking ugly anyway. And the hot one knows that's going to cut deep. It's going to hurt the ugly girl at her core. But it doesn't matter, because that's how the betrayal goes. You aim for the weakest spot. You blindside them. And you know their weakness. You know exactly how to twist the screw. So the more friends you have, the more vulnerable you are. You're more vulnerable for betrayal. More people know your weaknesses. I'm not saying go through life and don't have friends. I'm saying if you're going to go through life and pretend everyone's your friend and throw your emotion and your loyalty out there to basically anyone you meet untested.
Oh no! Having a lot of friends. The horror. Tate, come on now. I've seen you in videos with multiple dudes that just hang out at your house. And are like, you're like, I'm buying a Lamborghini. And your friends are like, you're buying a Lamborghini? This definitely isn't an ad.
There's nothing funny about the
Tate,
tools of capitalism.
there's nothing wrong with having friends. There's nothing wrong with being a person who opens themselves up to others. You need to chill out. This hat's giving me a headache. Ooh. MMO addicted with 10 bits. Wholesome story. Victoria, after she became open, used her estate and made an adventuring school for orphans and other folks who had nowhere to go. Taught them swordplay and magic and literally cried herself to sleep when one of them called her mom. She was a big softie despite being a powerhouse who literally killed a god in single combat. 3rd edition had stats for gods, and yes, it was an insane combat, as you can imagine. The dice were good for me. I gotta remember this stuff for the thing I'm stealing. Hold on, let me take screenshots of this so I can remember. Dr. Gamble with 20 bits. Finished with my woman because she couldn't help me with my mind. People think I'm insane because I'm frowning all the time. Is that a line? There's a microphone emote, so I'm assuming that's a line from something.
Individuals, eventually you'll be betrayed, and you will find that betrayal is far worse than having an enemy. If I have the choice, if I meet 10 people and I have the choice of making them my friends or making them my enemy, to be honest with you, I have no problems making them enemies. I don't give a fuck. If I sit there and I don't see any genuine value, if I don't genuinely want to be your friend.
Tate's weird, like, delusions of grandeur where he thinks he has, like, arch enemies is kind of adorable. It's kind of funny how, like, grandiose he thinks his life is when it's not. Like, he lives in a McMansion in Romania, and he thinks that he's, like, Victor Von Doom. It's very strange.
Then I don't give a fuck. Be my enemy. Come for me, attack me, insult me. I can deal with all that. I would much rather have 10 guaranteed enemies than one friend I'm not sure of. And I live by this code so strictly, everyone out here is watching this going, yeah, I keep a small circle, I keep a small circle. My circle is one. And that's my brother. That's my fucking circle. One person.
Tate out here admitting he has no real friends. He only has one family member that he actually trusts. Interesting. Thank you, Wagroads13 for gifting a sub.
So that's how small a circle can be and should be if you want to be completely the guy who will actually die beside you, won't abandon you at the last minute. You're going to have one, maybe two people on this planet to pull that off. Nobody else.
Take Shinkai.net. The products on there, every single one of them is absolutely top quality. We have the PhD course, which is guaranteed to change your perspective and change your dynamics with women. If you want more women, get the PhD course. My fitness program, I don't go to the gym. I stay in perfect condition with 30 minutes of exercise a day from home. The fitness program allows you to stay in shape without messing around, without driving to the gym, in the comfort of your own home, 30 minutes a day. The chess program, you need to understand why chess must be mastered. And if you don't understand, watch the chess video. As for the t-shirts, mugs, everything else, there's nothing better than...
Let's see what Tate's website's up to. CobraTate.com. View programs. Level up your life. Tate's War Room. I think this is just a chat room that you can pay to get into. And it costs £1,300 to get into this chat room. You can pay £337 for his PhD program. Join Tate's PhD program and learn that real G techniques for getting girls. Iron Mind program, £547. 6-week mental resilience training. This course is specifically designed to build a mind of iron resilience across 6-week program. Specific instructions on how to make very large changes in your day-to-day thinking with minor adjustments to your perceptions. My goodness, Tate. My goodness. Good luck with that, Tate. Good luck with all of it. We can probably do one or so more things.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Iron Mind, more like Marblehead. It's a bit of a stretch, but okay, I'll give it to you. You gave me a bit. Wait, is this guy the... Nah. Is this guy the tanky, or is this guy a Nazi? I don't remember. Let me see what his most popular videos are.
About the tools of capitalism.
Did we see the dog cleanse? We just did a cleanse that was like 10 minutes. I don't want to do another one right now. We didn't see it yet, though. I'll save it under cleanses, though, for another time. Here, I'll save it and I'll start a cleanse folder. That's actually a good idea. Under bookmarks, new folder, cleanse. There. It's saved under the cleanse folder. Here's a libertarians channel. What's his about thing say? My name is Scott, born and raised in Scotland, Glasgow, a proud British Scot and passionate political advocate of libertarianism and capitalism. I feel that it is important now, more than ever, to get the message of liberty out to people, given our educational system is failing us. I did my own thorough research, independent studying out of self-interest, and largely influenced from the likes of Mises Institute, and others like the Chicago School. The message of liberty is so vitally important, and my channel is directed towards getting people to understand the fundamentals of economics, getting people to understand the value of capitalism, debunking many of the myths, and taking apart the arguments on socialism for why it is such a miserable failure. So I guess he did a response video to Thought Slime. So let's see what this is all about.
A popular argument you'll come across in critique of capitalism is on the voluntarism, is to say that capitalism isn't voluntarist. Thought Slime goes on to argue in response on someone else's quote.
Here's something that ANCAPs and ANCOMs alike don't actually know. You can live without a job. You just want to live luxuriously.
You literally can't live without a job. What are you talking about?
Find a YouTube channel called Primitive Technology.
Oh, is he literally gonna be like, yes, go and live in the woods? Nah, bro. That's not just piecing out of capitalism. That's not how it works.
Apology. Every single person who currently lives in poverty, semicolon, if they really tried, semicolon, could walk out into the wilderness and live in the Paleolithic era.
First of all, Thought Slime is taking this guy way out of context. In other words, what this guy is basically saying is the fact that if you don't like capitalism, good luck moving in the opposite direction. Good luck getting rid of everything of what capitalism produces.
Okay, but the point is that the things that are produced by capitalism could also be produced under systems that benefited the majority of people instead of benefiting the very few. And I recognize that there are certain, like, ephemera of capitalism, like the idea that we get, like, 7 iPhones a decade, 10 iPhones a decade, or whatever. Like, that's a result of capitalism. But none of that would be impossible under a market socialist system, right? You could still have companies producing consumer goods and things of the like, while also not having the majority of the profit from making those things go to a very few individuals at the very top of the company. You want a system that's flatter instead of the pyramid that we currently have. So workers who make an iPhone make a reasonable amount of money based upon the labor they put into it. Like, I don't think that's an unreasonable thought. You don't need to have capitalism in order to have markets and have businesses.
Creates all the capital that is readily made available.
I mean, really, this is just a poorly construed version of the most common rebuttal I get to any content I make that criticizes capitalism. Hey guy, capitalism is voluntary. I mean, if you think about it, that's the moral basis for free market capitalism. The market is made up of people making choices to trade things with one another. So don't complain about it because it's your choice, you knucklehead. You can just pack your bags and move away. Build a new, non-capitalist society, like Richard Black suggests. Just walk into the woods and build yourself a mud hut.
Again, Thought Slime really doesn't comprehend the difference between socialism theoretically to that of practice throughout recorded history. So
if we're going to talk about theoretically versus practice, then you also need to talk about capitalism in practice versus theoretically. Theoretically, capitalism on paper sounds like a good idea. It gives people the right to have contracts with whoever they want and to be able to profit off of things as long as they're able to get people to come to work for them for a lower price than their labor is worth, and then they can make a profit off of it. Theoretically, that sounds like a good idea until you get to the practical application where you have places like the United States where profit motive seeps itself into every avenue of everyday life, up to and including life-saving insulin, other forms of medical care, the fact that the vast majority of people find themselves not working for someone who owns a business, but for working for someone who works for someone who works for someone who works for someone who works for a CEO of a multinational billion-dollar corporation, whether it's at Walmart or an Amazon picker, or whether you work at anywhere else around. You most likely do not know the people, and the people who own the businesses do not know you. You are a faceless worker to them. And in that way, they're able to create policies that harm workers for the benefit of either themselves or for shareholders, which hurts labor overall. And most people in this country are labor. It's just the result of how things work. Most people in this country work to produce things or work in a service industry and help do things, but they're not the ones who are the primary beneficiaries of the system that we currently have.
Socialism has always ended in totalitarianism. There was never really the case of it being democratic or libertarian. It's all well.
So you're agreeing that socialism has never been implemented in such a way as to actually benefit society. So if we were to implement it in a democratic way, then it could work. Great, good. Glad we're on the same page. I know that's not what he means.
Having that as a theory and believing in such a thing of what the likes of Kropotkin had argued, but that is it. It's theory. In practice, he has the choice to leave a country that does have private ownership to a certain degree and go and live in a country where there's very little of a private sector left. And the reason why they would never...
Advocating for socialism doesn't mean you advocate for totalitarian, authoritarian socialism. That's why there's a differentiation between someone who's like a democratic socialist or a market socialist or any sort of like modern socialist ideology and people who are tankies, right? Most people are not tankies who are socialists or communists or whatever. It's just not the case. You end up with people like Burger King guy, who of course are going to be mouthpieces for like Russian propaganda wings. But outside of that, typically when we talk about people like on RedTube who are sort of parroting and talking about and synthesizing opinions that are, I think, emblematic of the majority of people who ascribe to socialism in the Western world, then we're not talking about tankies. In fact, we're talking about people who make fun of tankies for being idiots. Freaking out 99 with a bit. He's saying, LOL, just go to a socialist country as a solution, but the capitalist country actively makes it difficult for the socialist ones to survive. Correct.
Do so is because
Burger King, it's a whole thing.
They're an economic catastrophe. But it's always a case that, oh, that isn't real.
There's this guy.
Funny about the tools of capitalism.
What's his name? His last name's like Maupin. Maupin. Oops. Burger King.
Burger King.
This guy's tanky. And that became a meme because he said Burger King weird.
Burger King. Burger King. Burger King.
I'm not going to play that whole video. The Surfs have played that video, I think, multiple times. If you want more Burger King, go check out Lance over at the Surfs TV.
Socialism.
If nobody on Earth was disabled, infirm, needed medicine, or lived in an area with an inhospitable climate, also everyone had access to the huge tracts of land needed to grow food without modern infrastructure. Also, the capitalist societies that they currently
Didn't he say
live
it
just
in
let
weird
them
in
go,
response
and
to
also
Thought
waive
Slime?
property
Oh,
taxes
probably.
for
I
this
have no idea. I don't know the
anti-capitalist
exact
experiment
context. It was
for
just
some
funny and it
reason.
became a meme.
Also, the capitalists wouldn't just take all of your stuff if you started making something profitable or useful to them, even though they'd have the largest militaries in the world at their back, and you literally live in a mud hut. Also, like, you don't care about leaving your friends, family, and home behind? But, okay, alright, but even granting all of those things, it's still a pretty raw deal.
I did miss a donation. Sorry. Wing the Ultimate Nug with a $20 donation. Love your YouTube full streams. Walmart could pay an additional $50 an hour to every one of their 1.5 million employees and still make more than $100 billion profits per year. Yeah. It's very stupid. The system we have currently is very, very stupid. It's basically a pyramid scheme. Like, the entirety of society is basically a pyramid scheme right now. It's really messed up.
Much faith in humanity, and you'll remember from the previous video, he goes on about that of the dog-eat-dog world, and then he contradicts himself and he says about he doesn't view humanity as greedy and he has faith in humanity. Well, the fact is, when someone believes in forcing redistribution of wealth, when someone believes in forcing people to share, what that's basically saying to you is they do not have faith in people being left be to themselves because they think that, well, they would not provide for others.
would disagree with the point that that's inherently an inherent contradiction. I believe that people, on the whole, want to share with people, and I think people on the whole are generally good. However, unfortunately, power, especially within a capitalist system, often ends up in the hands of the kinds of people who would be the beneficiaries of a capitalist system, and those people tend to be, as we find, to be sociopaths. And sociopaths, while they are a minority of the population, end up being quite a large portion of, like, CEOs and successful business people, specifically because those behaviors are successful and rewarded under capitalism. And those behaviors, unfortunately, because of the system, end up becoming cultural values and tainting people's value systems to become more selfish. So, I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, everyone is good or everyone is bad or whatever. I think it's highly culturally contextual, and on top of that, when you have a system that rewards people with poor moral systems, that's going to trickle down to the rest of the population. So, I don't know.
Defining ethic of socialism is coercion. So capitalism is basically about the redistribution of wealth through charitable means, through the voluntary action. Socialism's got nothing to do with the voluntary action. Socialism's about communal ownership. It's about coercion.
It's not about coercion. It's about making sure that the people who, like, work for a company have ownership in that company. Pretty simple. It's making sure that people get their fair share from the work they do. And if for some reason you can't work, then you're still taken care of, because human beings are a social species and we want to be able to take care of people if they can't take care of themselves. And I think that's fair and reasonable.
About forcing others to share, and they've got no other means but to do so. And at the end of the day, see, if you get rid of capitalism and he's going down this road of you go in the opposite direction, you will lose liberty. You will end up in the direction of the Soviet Union.
Literally, the only way to be socialist is to be Stalin. Galaxy brain Tate.
Do you accept living in a communist dictatorship under the proviso that you could, if you so chose, walk into the woods and start a new society? Would having that option make the actions of a communist dictator just? No, obviously not. Having the option to flee a system does not make that system voluntary, it just gives you the option of becoming a refugee.
Again, Thought Slime doesn't understand practice to that of the theories. All this theoretical nonsense, and you hear it all the time, it's this theoretical nonsense about, oh, but socialism's workers' ownership of this, workers' ownership of that. Well, that's all well said and done, but what's the entity that carries out the nationalisation? What's the entity that's going to get rid of the private sector? The government? Now, you'll never get an answer to it. They talk about getting rid of the private sector.
Yeah, the government enforces laws, and I'm not necessarily talking about in what I think, and this is going to vary from person to person for obvious reasons. People have different opinions on how things should be carried out in actuality. But just because the government ensures that, for instance, workers are able to retain ownership in the company they work for doesn't mean that ownership goes through the government, right? At least in the way I see it. Like, all you would need to do is have laws that say, like, hey, if you're an employee of a company, then you inherently have a right to part ownership of that company and have a say in how that company runs and the compensation of not only you, but the other workers around you, and have basically democratic workplaces, right? That doesn't require state ownership. All that requires is the law to say that workers collectively own businesses as opposed to a few individuals at the top. And then a bunch of shareholders who are basically riding on speculation waves and going from, like, boom to bust every 10 years or so. Like, again, I'm not going to pretend that I'm, like, the most involved person in this community that has all the answers for you, but you're also framing this discussion in an inherently dishonest way by assuming that the only way that you could carry out some sort of socialist society is through the use of a totalitarian government. At least not any more totalitarian than any other government that has laws on employment. Like, every government has power and the power to enforce its laws. That isn't inherently totalitarian just because it's under a system in which employees are able to have more of a say in their workplaces and are more willing or more able to get the benefits of their work. That's not inherently totalitarian.
What's the entity that does it? It's the government. And you're going to need a specific character, a specific leader that's going to lead you there. Now, it's not going to be the likes of your Jeremy Corbyn or that of your Bernie Sanders type, you know.
But why? Why do you think you need some sort of dictator to carry this out? The government in the United States functions, usually functions, and we have a plethora of ways of handling governmental interference. Like, there are different branches of the government that deal with different things. We have the executive branch, which of course the president is a party to, and the head of, but there are other parts of the executive branch. We have the legislative that makes the laws, and we have the judicial that interprets the laws. All of these work in tandem to create a system, right? You don't need a dictator in order to make a socialist society. In fact, quite the opposite. I'd argue that's exactly the reason that socialism or communism, whatever, in the past has been so awful, because it's always been like a totalitarian endeavor. It's always been done by states that want nothing but like no one to have a say. And that's why I think when we're talking about like changing into a different form of economic system, I don't think that's something I'm ever going to see the fruits of in my lifetime, because I believe in democracy. And I think in order for these sort of changes to happen, what you need to do is to convince the voting population that they are to their benefit, then advocate for politicians who feel the same, and then over time democratically change the laws to benefit those in society as opposed to the few at the top, right? I'm not calling for like a complete, you know, some sort of weird Russian Revolution thing where we go and we like, and I know the guillotine thing is a meme and people make fun of it and they're like, oh, get the guillotines. But no, that's not the kind of thing I would advocate for. I would advocate for policy change that benefits people in society who do the most work, people who need things the most and might not be able to work, right? Instead of the system that we have now that just ends up hoarding wealth at the top, right? This doesn't involve having some sort of dictator. It just involves changing the rules of the game to benefit everyone as opposed to the lucky few who find themselves at the top.
That don't really have the gall to do it. It's going to be somebody like your Nicolas Maduro. That's what it requires. The reason why it requires a dictator type, it goes against the economics. To completely abolish the private sector is to abolish the productive sector. Public sector's no the productive sector. The public sector lives after.
Again, what is this idea that like the private sector doesn't exist anymore? Again, this is going to depend entirely who you talk to, but like a worker co-op is not inherently the public sector. It's still a private sector business. It's just collectively owned by the people who work there. That's a very different thing. You can't just say that's the end of innovation and the end of the free market. Like, you can have markets and private businesses just with a more equitable power structure.
The fruits of what the
it is my new D&D hat, yeah.
Private sector produces. And this is the thing, you get rid of the private sector that finances the economy, where else are you going to turn to? You're going to turn to the printing press. And that's not going to do you so well. And if you're going to argue for the moneyless based economy, that's just mental. I already argued and I stated the fact that, you know, economists widely agree nobody would ever accept a 100% income tax, which is equivalent.
Who's advocating for 100% income tax?
To basically a moneyless based economy, because you're earning nothing. So that is naturally where socialism leads. It's no.
In what way? In what way does it inherently lead to that?
No by accident. It happens because that's what happens when you try to oppose the economy. That's socialism for you.
The idea that anyone...
The straw men, they're numerous.
Anyone can walk away from their current civilization into the woods and start a new society from scratch is a fantasy.
It's funny how he talks about that of a fantasy, because that's exactly what socialism is. When you...
And so is this ideal of capitalism, where the benefits of it raise everyone up equally and no one is ever hurt. And don't worry, rich people are inherently philanthropic, and they're gonna give to charity so much that will have no one fall through the cracks of society. Dude, we live in capitalism. We can see that's not the case.
You speak about this idea of socialism avoiding totalitarian governance. That basically is...
You haven't even explained why you think socialism inherently will lead to totalitarianism. You've stated it as if it's a fact.
Of capitalism.
as if I agree with the Soviet Union or like China, which I don't, and most socialists don't. So like, if you're gonna make a claim that you think socialism, whether it's like, especially when we're talking about democratic socialism, that includes like, and Bernie Sanders would be, you know, right in terms of socialism. He just is for expanding social safety nets. I don't even know if I've heard him talk about like worker co-ops or anything, but like, the opportune word there is democratic, right? You can have a system where everyone agrees we need a more equitable system, as opposed to the system we have currently, where it's like crabs in a bucket, and everyone's so intent on like, there's a 1 in a billion chance I could become a really rich person, so we might as well have this system that hurts me currently. Like, it's lunacy. It's like having a system where everyone is treated like crap unless you win the lottery, and then you get treated really, really well, and everyone puts up with being treated like crap because there's a chance one day they might be the one that gets treated really, really well. Instead, how about we sort of spread that out more evenly? And I'm not even saying there'd be absolutely zero hierarchy, and there's people who are socialists who would like be really mad at me for saying that, but I'm saying like, right now, the amount of distance between the top people in our society in terms of wealth and the people at the bottom is way too high. We gotta flatten this shit out. It's unsustainable. It's not even just about the morality of the thing, though that certainly is a big motivator. I think that the morality of the system we have now is terrible, and it hurts so many people unnecessarily. But at the end of the day, the idea that there are people like Jeff Bezos out there who are basically the winners of capitalism, who have like hundreds of billions of dollars, more money, and I understand it's not all liquid capital. That's irrelevant to the discussion we're having, because having money in companies and having shares in the most powerful company on the planet is power, and power is also wealth that should be distributed more evenly. Having someone with that much power and so many people living in abject poverty and not being able to afford healthcare, it's unsustainable. Like, even if you don't care about the morality of the argument, that's fine. That's your business. I'm not here to be your morality police. I am here to tell you, though, it is completely and entirely unsustainable. And you cannot have a society that functions like this to continue to go on. You cannot have a society built upon the backs and laws that benefit shareholders that are constantly asking for ever more growth with absolutely no abating it, without expecting things to go poorly, because infinite growth is impossible, and it's what our current version of capitalism demands. It's not enough to make billions of dollars. You have to make 5% more every year, 10% more every year in perpetuity, or you are a failure, and that is impossible. I'll give you an example. McDonald's. McDonald's is a company where they're consistently having to try and find ways to get more profit. But at the end of the day, there are multiple McDonald's's in every single city in America. How do you continue to grow a business exponentially when you have reached market saturation? You just can't do it. So McDonald's now works on things like expanding around the world and growing franchises elsewhere, but that's still a finite resource. Eventually, the world will reach, like, market saturation on McDonald's. And then what happens to that company if we're still under the current system? There's no more growth. There's nowhere for them to go. They're amazingly profitable. They make hundreds of billions of dollars a year, let's imagine, in this future, where there's McDonald's on almost every street corner on the planet. But nonetheless, it's not about profit or sustainability. It's about infinite growth. And that is unsustainable. It's just frustrating. There are multiple McDonald's in every city in the world. Most cities. There are certainly places where there aren't. But, yeah.
It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy because the Paris Commune was heading down that direction. it was turning towards the dictatorial rule. In his previous argument, he says, well, we're going to need a specific entity to basically dictate to people that you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to abide by these specific rules. Well, when you've got an entity there and it's a set group of people that are setting down rules for other folk and you have to abide by these specific rules, that is the definition of governance. You might not call it a government, doesn't matter what you call it, that's the definition to govern. When you govern...
Yeah, I would agree. Government is basically when there's a supreme authority that is sovereign that dictates the rules, which is why I advocate for, again, a form of democratic socialism, where people still have a vote and they have a say in the system, but nonetheless the system of a government does exist. I don't believe in, like, anarchic socialism. I think that's a bad idea. And there's going to be people who disagree with me. I know, like, people like Vosh is, like, an anarcho-syndicalist or something, which involves, like, very little government to no government or something, but I don't know. I'd have to talk with them, like, more about what they believe, because I'm not really familiar. But yes, there would need to be a government in some way, shape, or form, democratic, that dictates rules based upon probably representatives that are elected by people to come and, you know, vote on laws and stuff. And those laws would ideally benefit those in society as a whole, and not just individuals who happen to win the game of capitalism.
You are the one that's an entity, a group of people that is dictating and trying to control other folk. And the funny thing was, we saw exactly that Chaz, basically the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, where they started setting down rules. Oh, here's a segregated area for black people only, and segregated farming and all the rest of this, and you have to do this and you have to do that. In other words, it was quickly centralising towards its own wee type of government. That's what happened with the whole thing you saw of anarchist Catalonia.
I agree. Government is inevitable. It's a way for humans to organize themselves. There's no way to get around that.
It was anarchy. It was a terror group that formed that tried to dictate to other folk. And it was the same thing in the Paris Commune. You see, in the real world, socialism, it doesn't accept personal ownership of property at all. It doesn't. So, well, folk that, you know, were theorists, and they write down about how socialism can be this and socialism can be that. But how's that turned out in practice each and every single time? It's a fantasy in and of itself to believe that socialism can be libertarian or even democratic.
It's not like Minecraft.
I would partially agree about the libertarian thing. I think libertarian socialism is a very weird thing, because how are you going to make sure people follow the rules and make sure people equitably distribute power in companies or power in places of work if you don't have a central government that's dictating those rules? But saying that socialism is inherently incompatible with democracy, you need to demonstrate that if that is your claim. On what are you basing that fact? What about democracy and what about socialism are mutually exclusive to the extent that one precludes the other?
You can't just walk into the woods, punch a few trees, and build a village. All of the land and resources you'd need are either...
If you want to talk to Vosh, just send him an email. I certainly can't do it on Twitch, so I don't know.
Owned privately or assumed to be de facto owned by whatever government lays claim to your particular location.
Forget the argument for a second here on the centralised agriculture, because I've beat it to death, and I even covered it in a previous argument in response to Thought Slime. That will lead down the road of starvation, right? You know that. He's going on about the fact that you can't just do this and you can't just do that. Well, that's the funny thing. Again, it goes to that thing about the fantasy. He's faced with the economic calculation problem. If you destroy the information of profits and losses, you can forget efficiency, because there's no way for you to know what resource...
The idea that profits and losses are inherently one-to-one tied to efficiency is ridiculous. Often profit is dictated by cutting corners, and that doesn't make something efficient. It makes it more profitable. Like, if you pay your workers less, you might make more profit, but that's not more efficient. You're not necessarily going to output more and better of whatever product you're talking about, whether it's literal farming or whether you're manufacturing iPhones. Like, profit and efficiency are not one-to-one, and sometimes one gets in the way of the other. It depends on how you define efficient. Like, if you define efficiency by making sure you and the shareholders make the most money, then of course profitability is going to be one-to-one with that, because you've defined them as each other. Whereas I would define efficiency as making sure you get maximum output of your input while making sure that your product remains sound, whether it's, again, food or an electronic or whatever it happens to be. You are saying that profit is always going to be a metric of efficiency because you have defined efficiency as profit. And that's not the case. That's ridiculous. You would probably get a more efficient, better functioning Walmart if you paid your employees more. But that implies that your intent when making a giant store is to make sure you have the best experience for shoppers and for workers. But that's not what the Walmart company does. That's not their goal. Their goal is to make money, profit for them and the shareholders, even if it makes a worse experience for customers. Now, there are going to be limits to this because you can only make so bad of an experience before people will stop shopping there. But at this point, Walmart's such a huge company and a borderline monopoly in some areas of the country that does it even matter? Once you reach a certain amount of market saturation and you've defeated so much competition, you can cut all sorts of corners and people don't have a choice but to go there. And then you have a situation where efficiency doesn't really matter as much as it does just making sure you can cut corners enough to make a big profit and pay dividends to your shareholders. That's not the same as being efficient. That's being profitable. They're different things.
Sources you're going to use, how you're going to do this, that, and the next thing. And you could use the argument even on the knowledge problem. You know, Murray and Rothbard made the argument about a ham sandwich. It's all well just thinking of how you make the ham sandwich. It's just, you just take 2 bits of bread, you butter them, or some people don't, and you put the ham between it, and there you go. How is the bread made? How is all the machines made? You know, how is the tractors and all the rest of it made? How were all these machines made? All the capital that goes into producing and collecting the grain, and how it's all transported and where it's transported. Think about this, right? You've got a market out there that's
MMO addicted with 10 bits. LMHO. Any system can be perverted and spiral out of control. Capitalism, communism, if we lose sight of the fact that the system exists to make people live better and prevent abuse, both can become awful. And any system can be good if we keep people in focus, but I am slowly losing faith in humankind's ability to get our shit together. Yeah, and I want to point out, too, I don't think capitalism was ever inherently a bad system to begin with. I'm not saying capitalism hasn't done amazing things. I just think that, like all systems of organization, one comes to an end point where it's no longer working, right? Like, capitalism is better than systems that we had previously, and it got us to a point where we have, like, wonderful things in this world because of it, but we're at an end point where it's gotten so corrupted, and it's become outdated to the point that we end up with people who are basically oligarchs who are controlling society with all the money that they've accumulated via capitalism. What is it doing anymore? It's not benefiting it's not benefiting anyone. So we've just reached a point where we can have better ways of organizing things that benefit everyone on the whole, right? We did it. We're industrialized, and I understand that not everywhere in the world is, but I'm talking about, like, the Western world. We're industrialized. We have amazing things. We have the most impressive consumer electronic devices in the history of the world, and those things can continue, but we already have the means of production, right? There are already people who in society design these things and go to school to do those things. There are people who work to manufacture those things. Like, all that is required to make the system work is to flatten the payment scheme so that we don't have these people at the top that are all profiting off the work of others who are actually doing work, whereas the people at the top, most of them were just born to parents who already had capital that let them use that capital to finance endeavors that, again, are powered not by them, but by workers who actually do the work. I don't know. It seems simple to me, but, like, whatever.
It's vast. You've got 65 million people. How do you know where you're going to allocate the bread? Where's it most needed? You know, you've got all the variety of different...
Again, markets can exist outside of capitalism, right? Markets are not always synonymous with capitalism. Doing away with capitalism or altering capitalism in some way to make it more equitable for the working class does not do away with markets. I recognize that markets are a really, really helpful metric, and they help society sort of determine where do we need to put resources, where would be a good place to increase production or decrease production or work on efficiency or whatever. I get that, but again, efficiency, I'm using it differently than this guy would probably use efficiency. But that's why I consider myself like a market socialist, right? I understand that many of the same tools that capitalism uses aren't inherently bad and can be used for good. I just want the way that they are implemented to be implemented in such a way to benefit more people than, again, the people at the very top. But again, he is responding to Thought Slime, and I don't know what Thought Slime's feelings on markets are. I have no idea. I've not watched a lot of Thought Slime.
Different options as well, and that's another thing.
MMO addicted with 10 bits. Yep, I agree with basically everything you're saying, but from a purely capitalistic standpoint, even the people at the top should be into flattening this too. With looming automation, it's going to be an issue very soon where there's no one left to buy stuff. And in capitalism, the money is like spice. It must flow. What is Bezos going to still thrive when his business is reduced to just robots bringing his fellow billionaires caviar? No crap, it will collapse. Sorry, I'm censoring people's chats, by the way, because if I swear less, there's a higher chance I'll get monetized on YouTube.
He doesn't take into consideration. You're going to need, like Christian Niemiec stated, you're going to need something like the 5-year plan to carry out the central planning for a vast nation. You can't just have...
Again, the implication that all socialism requires central planning and a planned economy is not true. It's really going to be dependent on who you talk to.
Individual communes all going doing their own thing. No less you want to take our living standards, like I says, back 200 odd year. But when you're faced with the economic reality that you've got all these millions of different products out there in the market, you're going to need to work out how much to produce of each and every single option, of each and every single item. In economic reality, you destroy the information of prices that only the market can provide. Well, good luck with that. Socialism in practice does exactly that, but in his argument,
if you have a socialism that's powered by a central economy and doesn't involve markets, which is not all socialism.
Let's just go down the road of that argument. Because in a moneyless-based economy, you've no information of prices.
Again, the idea that it'd be a moneyless-based economy. I didn't say that. I know he's not responding to me, so that's not fair of me to say, but I'm just saying it to illustrate the point. This isn't what all socialists believe.
You're faced with the same problem, plus the fact there's going to be the lack of incentive to produce more.
You don't have a choice but to live within capitalism. As long as capitalism maintains hegemonic control over the place you live, you are forced to participate, even if you don't want to.
You know, that's absolutely magical, folk. And just about every single socialist regime, and again, socialism in practice, never mind this theoretical nonsense. Oh, but that's not true socialism. Whether you talk about the Berlin Wall and...
Wing the ultimate nug with a bit. Why don't we funnel all our money to space mining? If we space mine, then we have virtually unlimited resources, especially rare resources needed for high-end computers. Therefore, all markets will collapse and everything will be virtually free if we want. Like Star Trek without the magic atom machines that turn things into other things. I mean, I guess. But if we're talking about space mining, you might as well talk about replicators, right? We're talking about sci-fi technology. Do I think that someday people will mine asteroids? Sure. But it's just not cost effective, so it's not going to happen now. And there we have markets again. I'm not against markets.
Of East Germany, did they need to build a wall in any country that pushed...
Again, you're like comparing USSR to what like modern socialists who aren't tankies believe, and it's just not congruent.
Towards more and more capitalism? Did West Germany have to build a wall? You don't see people seeking to flee countries that are on a scale more towards capitalism. You don't see all these walls.
Where are they going to flee to? Where would actually, Canada. Canada would be a good choice. If I could move to Canada right now, I would. Specifically because of their socialized healthcare system. Please. I would love to move to Canada, but you know why I can't? Because it costs a lot of money. Again, money getting in the way with my ability to go to a place where I feel I have greater opportunity. What a shock.
You don't see things like the Iron Curtain, do you? It's always a case that in every socialist country that you find, they always have something like the military threatening and killing people like Venezuela. Again, it reminds me of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. They're autonomous zone, but they were building a wall.
Capitalists are right to say that the choices they make within capitalism
Yeah, it was to try and keep, like, cops and the military from coming in.
are usually voluntary. Nobody is able to compel you to buy one type of toothpaste over another, or to buy toothpaste at all. Hey man, if you don't care about your teeth falling out, that's your business. That's freedom. But let me ask you this. What does it truly mean for something to be voluntary? And I don't mean that in some wishy-washy does free will exist type of way. Look at it this way. If you're mugged, is giving your money to the mugger voluntary? No?
Folk, I don't even know where to go with this one. This one has just left me absolutely confused, and I'm pretty sure it's left you in the same way. How?
He's talking about the inherently, how do I put this? The inherently coercive nature of living in a society that requires you to participate in a system you don't agree with. It's pretty straightforward as an analogy. I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but it's very understandable. So acting like faux confused about it is kind of a stupid tactic.
How did he draw to the conclusion, okay, it's voluntary for you to hone your money off and buy a product. That's voluntary and accept.
MMO addicted. Yeah, I just think that no matter what, until we finally start to treat everyone as a person, even if we disagree with them, we'll still have issues. According to my grandpa's tales, the attitude of the party guys at the end of the USSR was very similar to the attitude of current billionaires. They stopped seeing people as people and became just numbers. Anyway, good night, Hannah. I had a lovely time. Thanks, MMO addicted. I hope you have a good night. Scribes Pyraire, thank you for subscribing. 2-month streak. They say, thanks for the hours of entertainment, Hannah. I just finished binding my first book listening to this stream. Sweet! Thanks for listening to the stream in the background.
Accepts that. If you apply for a job, right, that is voluntary. We'll get to the whole thing of the job because he's just about to get to that. He then goes on about an individual that mugs another individual to forcibly remove something for them. What's that got to do with the issue to do with the voluntarist action?
Because what he's saying is to survive within society, aka to not be stabbed in the metaphor, you are being coerced into taking an action you otherwise might not take, aka working in a system where the majority of the fruits of your labor do not go back to you, but instead are funneled upwards towards some CEO or some investor. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the coercive nature of, well, the system doesn't work for you, but if you don't work in it, you're gonna die. That's what he's saying. Again, it's not a difficult metaphor to understand. I think this guy's being intentionally obtuse.
In a capitalist system. What's that going to do with the free market? Somebody that mugs somebody is getting nothing at all to do with a capitalist employs people who, by the way, applied for the job. Do you know what apply means? It means they did it voluntarily.
Can I wear the glasses or are they stuck up there? No, they come off. Hold on. I don't think I've ever actually put these on. Because I just have them as a prop for the hat. This is my D&D character's hat. Ugh. Yeah, see, I can wear them. Although I can't see out of this eye at all. That's not true. I can see the inside of this thing, but it's not actually see-through.
Let's just move on, right? Because he gets on to the job bit. You'll see just how irrational this mindset, this mentality really is. Let's just move on.
Why not? You chose to
Major
do
Dub,
it.
thanks
Well,
for gifting
in order
a
for a choice
sub.
to be voluntary,
That rhymed.
you have to be free to not choose it without harm coming to you. It really doesn't matter if the cause of that harm is implicit in the choice or the result of human coercion, much to the chagrin of right libertarians, who insist only the latter counts and twist themselves into knots trying to justify that position. My choice to eat or sleep is not voluntary. I have to do those things because I'll die if I don't, and I don't want to die. I got too many cartoons to watch.
You can hear how childish that mentality really is. This idea about you need to sleep and obviously you need to eat. Oh, that's a bit obvious, isn't it? Again, a choice is something what you call voluntarist. You've got the choice, just like if you buy products. You've got a choice whether you want to buy the product or not, or you can just walk off and
Okay,
spend
but he's
your
not
money.
talking
And that's a
about
choice.
buying
Nobody
products.
forces
He's
you to
talking
do
about
so. It's a
taking
bit-
part in a system that, at its heart, does not benefit you in a fair way. And I know what this guy's going to say. Well, no one said life was fair. Okay, well, we're not talking about that, like, tornadoes happen sometimes. We're talking about a completely human design system that can be altered, right? I'm not even talking about, like, everyone getting paid the same, because, again, I believe in markets, and I recognize that someone who goes to school for years to be a doctor or to design a product is probably worthy of getting some more compensation than someone who just, like, does some sort of other job that didn't require as much education. But what I am saying is that the current system we have now, where there are a bunch of leeches at the top who effectively do nothing but own capital and hold it in order to try and dictate where things should go in terms of capital, I think that's bad for everyone, and that's the issue.
Bit like that of smoking or drinking. Nobody forces you to do so. This is where it gets really childish. Oh, you have to sleep and you have to, you know, eat. Okay, we understand that. That's the same with any system. And this is where he goes on.
Right. But within other systems, and again, the system is entirely a product of what humans decide, this system is exploitative to the majority of the people working within it, and that's the problem. That's what's being said here. Not just like, oh, wah, wah, I gotta eat. It's, I have to eat, and in order to eat, I have to participate in a system that is exploiting me. That's what he's saying, again. Like, you have to be intentionally obtuse not to understand this metaphor. It's not exactly complicated.
Today with the argument, today with the jobs.
I am, however, not forced by any other party to eat or sleep. I have the option to not sleep if I choose to, but it's not a meaningful choice because of the dying. Likewise, I could in theory choose not to sell my labor to my boss. No one is compelling me to do it by force, but I wouldn't have access to all of the things that I need to live if I didn't. I could choose to work for someone else, but I couldn't choose not to have a job at all. Even if I like my job, doing it is still not voluntary, because I have to have a job or I'll be destitute.
Folk, it's one of the most childish arguments anybody could come at me, because it doesn't matter what economic system you've got. Transport is work.
Again, you're completely missing the point. It's not just that you have to work in society. Everyone recognizes that. It's about working in a society that inherently exploits you. That's the issue, the exploitation, not the work.
There's nothing funny
Socialists aren't saying, I just don't want to work. Quite the opposite. Socialists are saying, I want to work, but I also want me to be able to benefit from my work in a fair way. And right now, people aren't. Cold Stare, thank you for gifting a sub. Wing the Ultimate Nug with a bit. Wait a second. I don't know why I didn't realize this, but I have to buy food with my wages, buy gas for transportation to get to my job with wages, and I have to sleep in a safe environment with my wages. Why isn't this part of my wages?
Agriculture, all of that is work. The process of how you actually produce things. You see, if you can imagine a human being in this world where there's nothing else, and all you've got is man and resources. You've got to do work in order to turn these resources into something useful that people can survive upon. So in other words, food. So there's work in everything you need to do. Right, that's part and parcel of life. Anybody who's got a complaint about that and tries to say, oh, you have to work for a living, therefore it's not voluntary, it's like, oh, dear God, man. It's like, this is what our education system is honestly doing to folk. See, if you actually turn to the alternative capitalism, collectivism, like full-blown socialism, trust me, you'd be, you know, working far longer hours, and you.
What? No! The entire point is to try and more equitably distribute not only power, or not only money, but power within a company, so that, like, when we're talking about working hours, you would have someone and people, not someone, groups of people who all work in the place dictating hours, probably through some democratic means, and deciding how long do we need to be able to work in order to get our work done, and they're going to be incentivized in making sure that they give themselves enough hours to get the work done, because they would also be beneficiaries of the actual efficiency of the company, because they're all owners of it. Ah, this guy's an idiot. I know, he's a libertarian. That's redundant.
you'd be getting, little in return. And that's been the case throughout recorded history, every socialist country.
They just need people like you. They can get rid of you if you're too difficult, because there are a lot more people like you than there are jobs available. Ah, but KC, you say. Just work somewhere else, or start your own business. Well, this can be a relatively difficult concept for privileged people with lots of employment prospects to grasp, but changing jobs isn't always easy or possible for a lot of workers. Particularly where the bulk of scarce jobs being created are extremely precarious work-for-hire scams with zero stability or benefits.
When it comes down to this argument, again, he's using today's examples. That's not a capitalist system. There is no free market. That's the very reason why people are struggling to find jobs. That's the very reason why there's a higher level of exploitation. Now,
I like that he was making fun of Thought Slime earlier and being like, oh, let me guess, that's not actually socialism, and now he's doing actually Uber isn't capitalism. The irony. It's palpable.
Must be noted that there's no such thing as this perfect system or perfect economy, because
straw man. No one's talking about a perfect system. We're talking about a system that exploits people less.
The bottom line is, you're always going to have corruption and exploitation, and you're always going to have rich and poor people. That's
okay, which is why you create a system that disincentivizes those behaviors instead of rewarding them, which is what capitalism currently does. No one is saying that human beings are these little balls of light that are moral, and if we did away with capitalism, everyone would just hug and share and love each other. No, we don't. Human beings are greedy. But that's the reason we need to create a system that disincentivizes those behaviors and rewards behaviors that involve things that we do think are good, working hard and getting paid in return equitably without getting exploited. That's a thing I think we can all agree is good. Exploiting your workers or exploiting your contractors in the case of Uber in order to make a profit, that's immoral. That's exploitative. That's part of capitalism, and it's not only part of capitalism, it's the rewarded part. That's the incentive under capitalism.
Real world, no matter what economic system you've got. The beauty of the capitalist system is the fact that it greatly reduces those problems. It just so happens to be, and you go in the opposite direction of that in these strongly mixed-based economies where you see corporatism, you see a lot of this wage suppression, simply because of the fact that they've got a wider range of employees to choose for, or potential employees. They can easily just get rid of somebody and employ somebody else to do it for cheaper. And that problem has actually been created, not just because of the open door and immigration, but the very...
Fuck you! Oh, actually, it's not capitalism's fault, it's immigration's fault. You disingenuous bitch. That is so ridiculous that you're like, actually, the fact that you're being underpaid, that's not the fault of capitalism, that's the fault of immigration. Oh, really? Even if that was the case, which it isn't, who's hiring the immigrants? Who's making the decision to hire people who they can pay less and firing people they can pay more? Did the immigrants come in and just literally run into Walmart and go, aha, I work at Walmart now? Or did a hiring manager using a mandate brought down from some CEO somewhere make that decision? So stupid. Hannah, do you know they're charging subscriptions for heated seats? What's next? Instead of keys, they have quarter slots? What, in Tesla cars or some other company?
Issue today with the fact that
and the thing is too, that's not good either. Like, in the situation you're talking about where immigrants are going to come in and take jobs and get paid less, the immigrants are being exploited, you doofus. That's also bad for them. Who's the victim there? Both the person who got fired and the person who's an immigrant who's coming in and getting paid less for the same job. Those are both the fault of the capitalist who's choosing those hiring policies and lowering wages. God, libertarians are idiots.
Markets become, monopolised. It's all these oligopolies. You're living in the absence of the free market. That's why there's such a problem. It's the very reason why folks struggle to start up a new business. They can't afford to do so. And why can they not afford to do so? They can't afford it because of the fact that all the socialist government regulation has pretty much sent the cost through the roof. The tax rate.
Oh, the cost of goods and things have gone through the roof. Actually, that's not capitalism's fault. That's actually, checks notes. Government regulations faults. No! Alright. I'm done with this guy. This guy's an idiot. God, I hate libertarians so much. That is a cute doggy. Wow, that's a well-behaved dog. Is there anyone I want to raid? Hold on, let me see. Twitch. What's Liv posting doing?
We're basically saying that coronavirus has now sort of brought us together, people clapping, NHS workers, let's build, a more positive society.
Sure.
There were rainbows in the background. This was shown on, Saturday night on ITV. This was not a, but it was.
So thanks everyone
way,
for
an
coming to the stream. I really appreciate it.
Anything controversial in it.
It was a lot of fun. We'll be back tomorrow for Tinfoil Tuesday. We might be doing QAnon stuff. We might have a special episode just about QAnon stuff because the main QAnon website, QAnon.pub or whatever it was, got taken down. So we'll have a discussion about that and look at some other QAnon craziness. So thanks everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.